sensitive incidents, including anti-aircraft fire and missile interceptions. But the fight is going on between all sides. Tehran Times just a short while ago put out images, put out videos of what they claimed were latest attacks across Gulf regions. We saw a similar attack on a port in Oman. We saw a similar attack in the UAE as well, and this is what is unfolding. In fact, Reha is now joining us, taking us through all of what the defining moments have been of day 4 of the war.
Absolutely. And Poonam, we have the video wall right here behind me. In fact, we are just going to be putting out these visuals of every kind of escalation that we have managed to, in fact, capture. And this is the latest piece of breaking news that we are getting. US Embassy in Riyadh has been hit by 2 Iranian drones. That something was a big development that happened that came in early in the morning. And now, in fact, we are on camera getting you these visuals of the area surrounding the US Embassy in the diplomatic quarter in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia after it was targeted by the 2 Iranian drones. If we play that out once again, you see March 3rd, and this is the visuals from the embassy in Riyadh, and this is right after the strike. Remember, the official response that's coming in from Saudi Arabia is that this is a minor damage that has in fact this drone strike has resulted in, and this is what we are in fact seeing. So Poonam, these visuals, as we in fact put these out for the viewers, if you can just come along here and see what do we have, because officially the word that's coming in from Saudi Arabia is that this is a minimum damage that happened despite the dramatic footage that was released early this morning as far as the twin drone attack by Iran.
And that's what Saudi Arabia and other Gulf nations have also maintained, that the damage is minimal. Many of those drones have been intercepted. We also have to be careful of the fact that both sides are making claims that support their sort of narrative.
Absolutely.
So Iran has been putting out videos in which they've been showing that there have been attacks on US assets, on military assets of the Gulf nations. But we are seeing both sides, from Saudi Arabia to Oman to UAE to the United States, claiming that all of these claims made by Iran are nothing but exaggeration. In fact, Rahul Shivshankar also now joins us, getting us more perspective on this. And Rahul, as far as these attacks, like I said, it's a narrative war as well. It's not just a war that plays out on the battlefield, but also in the cyberspace.
You know, what's really intriguing me is that Saudi Arabia, as you know, has a defense pact with the great Pakistan. So where is Pakistan? Why hasn't Pakistan entered the equation? Why hasn't it lived up to its own side of the bargain, Poonam? And that's fundamentally the question. No one is being able to sort of address this. It's the elephant in the room. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, after Op Sindhu, decided that they were going to go into a pact, an agreement, a military pact, that if you attack one, it's considered an attack on the other. It was a kind of brotherly equation that they had forged. And it was a mutual defense pact. And now fundamentally, there is no commitment from Pakistan. Has Pakistan either chickened out? Is it too undependable? Is it too broke? Or was this pact really, at the end of the day, more about optics and symbolism than about intent? I've got some reasons that might sort of square, and I've been sort of writing this piece since the morning. First of all, there is no publicly available clause mandating immediate deployment, immediate troop deployment. So while the pact was signed, there was a huge photograph, and you remember those pictures of Shehbaz Sharif and at that time, of course, MBZ, all of them, MBS rather, standing together, shaking hands over that pact. Nothing much has come out of it. You also had, of course, General Munir talking to his counterpart, and then it was signed very theatrically, and those pictures were then broadcast all over the world. And many people, including many here in India, were sort of a little worried about this pact, but it's going nowhere. Pakistan sits on the edge. So this is one aspect of it. Precedent, of course, matters. In 2015, I remember, and this is something that I've dug out, Pakistan's parliament voted against, in fact, joining the Saudi-led Yemen campaign. So that was also very interesting. The Pakistanis obviously have equations on both sides. So they have equations with the Saudis, but they also have equations with the Iranians. And they don't want to sort of at any level pick a side here. Remember, Pakistan has also been saying that it's very, very wary about allowing overflight rights or airspace, or giving its airspace to the US war effort. And just like the United States is upset with the UK for not providing Diego Garcia we are hearing that there are a number of voices from within the US establishment upset with Pakistan for not giving overflight rights to US aircraft to go and attack, as you know, eastern Iran. It's one area where there hasn't been much targeting, and a lot of forces of the Iranians have moved to eastern Iran because they see that there is a little area for them there to seek refuge. So this is really fundamental. It's a great question, and on the back of this, a lot of this has come out. Of course, that attack on the Ras Al Khaimah port, that's a big one in Oman, because once again, it is a tactical strike, Poonam. And those are the pictures that we're seeing on our screens. That is a tactical strike. Already oil has gone up by 5%. Yesterday there was another spurt in oil prices. The Iranians are thinking that, look, they can actually punish the war effort. They can escalate costs here using low technology drones and targeting all this oil infrastructure. Back to you.
Right, absolutely. Rahul, thank you so much for putting things into perspective. And we were just discussing, Poonam, this entire fog of war and how the narratives that are coming in from each side will be catering to their respective domestic audience. So the version has also come in from Pakistan as well on a possibility that they will be sending out their military assets to Saudi Arabia. But this Saudi Arabia question remains, because the one important aspect is that, which nobody seems to be discussing about, are US really being coerced into this war, not just by Israel, but also Saudi Arabia. And now there is an attack that is coming in by Iranians on Oman. Poonam, this piece of breaking news.
And more information that's now trickling in as far as the war in Gulf goes on. In fact, now we're learning is that US has issued a security alert for Oman. There are issues of shelter-in-place order that has now been made for all Americans. Remember, there was a time when the United States, at least as far as Israel was concerned, had left its citizens to fend for themselves. They said, we could not assist you in repatriating you back to the United States. You're on your own. Now, as far as Oman is concerned, at least there's some sort of respite, Griha, in the sense that at least here, they haven't said that we won't do anything for you when you're out there for yourself.
Absolutely. And this is an important piece of development, even as we are talking about oil refinery that is possibly being hit. And this was a major update that even Rahul Shivshankar was speaking about. We are talking about shelter in place for the US citizens, particularly, as this shelter in place order has come in by America, as US has issued this security alert for Oman. And all of this after this spate of attacks that have happened in Oman. We are now getting some more updates, in fact, on this very input that we are putting out for our viewers. We are also learning of alarm sirens, and this is the next piece of breaking news that we'd like to put out for our viewers. Alarm sirens blaring in the Jordanian capital, Amman. Another important piece of update, the Gulf continues to, in fact, ring. And Rahul, this is an important update that we have, in fact, broken for our viewers. Sirens there in Amman. Rahul.
Yes, very interesting. Now, look at this. Every country that has a US base or that has allowed its land to be used for the use of US forces is being targeted one by one. So, Iran is not withdrawing. It is actually widening the theater of this operation. How is it that the Iranians are being able to sort of carve out these passageways? We're going to try and, of course, go across to Tom Cooper in just a little while. But fundamentally, if you really look at the map, and let's pull out the map, I think it's right on your left. In fact, and if you could just go up to that map, Poonam, and have a look at it. It's just to your left, actually. We can look at where Jordan is. And it's very, very interesting because you see that there's a swath of land and it forms a corridor. And in that corridor, what exactly is happening is that you have a large number of Iranian missiles that go across. So if you just look at that, let's just talk about that. Poonam, if you just point out to our viewers where Jordan is, and you'll get a sense really, that's Jordan.
This is Jordan, this is where Israel is, this is where the Iranian missiles have also been attacking. Beersheba was one of those places where it hit yesterday. This is Amman, where sirens are now sounding. This is that particular area. This is that stretch of land that you were speaking of, Rahul.
Yeah, so if you look at that on the map, and if you could just point out Jordan for our viewers, it abuts Israel. There is Syria, there is Iraq. Now, all of these territories, viewers, are really not territories where the US has bases. So you actually have quite a passage for Iranian missiles to come through unless, of course, they're intercepted. That's one of the reasons why the Israelis are also trying to move into Lebanon so that they can establish a front line before these missiles come and hit Israel. They want to intercept them on soil that is not Israeli soil, because as you know, even debris can cause damage. So the geography there is very, very important. That's a passageway. The Iranians are getting into that passageway. They're targeting a number of these countries. They're going to escalate the costs for these countries. The hope is that these countries begin to fray, at least their nerves fray. The leadership begins to wonder. You damage their reputations for being safe havens, stable. Now, the Jordanian kingdom is a very stable place, actually. And it is one of those cities, Amman, which is a capital that is ruled by a prince and a king who are very, very close to the Americans and have been traditionally close to the Americans. So the idea is, here you create a little bit of unease, you make them feel the pressure, investor confidence is shaken, business activity stalls, costs begin to rise, and then you have an issue where these Gulf countries then begin protesting and the coalition gets fractured. So that's the idea.
Right, absolutely. So from Jordan to Oman, everything seems to be blaring up as far as these sirens also go. We are now constantly putting out these updates on the Indians who are stranded in these impacted regions. So here's an update for all of you there. Emirates, we are told, has extended flight suspension, and it is from Dubai. This extension has been put out till the 4th of March. As far as Etihad Airways is concerned, they have extended the flight suspension from Abu Dhabi up till March 5th. So far, no flights. That suspension remains. 4th of March is where Emirates from Dubai really is not going to be operating from till the 4th of March, at least as far as these constantly developing updates that we are bringing to you. And as far as Etihad is concerned, from Abu Dhabi, that suspension remains in place till at least the 5th of March. In fact, we are getting more updates, and Poonam here with me. Poonam,
and in fact, we were talking about this geography, Griha, of where exactly these attacks are taking place. In fact, the latest that we're now learning is about a port in UAE where there were some sirens that were sounded, there was some debris, there was some smoke that was witnessed as well. And that particular port, which is the Fujairah port in UAE, they have now stopped all its activities, is what we're learning. There was, in fact, a strike that was noted at that particular port, which is why all activities at that particular port have been suspended. Whether the suspension is temporary or not, Griha, we don't know just yet, because that's something that we've seen since yesterday. Even when Aramco was hit, temporarily there was some suspension. They eventually did come out and say that the damage was minimal, that none of their refining facilities were actually hit in terms of the production taking a hit. That's what seems to be happening at all of these other ports as well.
Absolutely. And this one that you're speaking about, the Fujairah port in Oman, that's particularly of significance here, because after Saudi, this is a UAE refinery that one is talking about. And the version that's coming in from UAE is that this is a minimum damage, and the interception really happened of the Iranian drones. And there was some debris that we see falling in those visuals we had earlier put out for our viewers when we broke this story. In fact, about this aspect as well, Rahul had touched upon it, but Rahul, more on this, oil refinery. So it's not just restricted to US military assets in the Gulf region. The energy is also, the energy infra is also starting to be impacted, particularly attacked by Iran.
So what is exactly Iran's game plan? What Iran is doing right now is not exposing its bigger weapons. It is using its low caliber weapons, it's using low cost weapons, it's crossing across the skyscape, and it is trying to harry some of these UAE city-states. The idea is to ensure that there is complete paralysis. You have already mentioned how in Dubai, for example, yesterday the Jebel Ali port was targeted. You also talked about the Saudi Aramco facility, and there is a dispute over just exactly how much damage has been caused to the Aramco facility. There's been now, of course, a hit in Oman, and Oman is, of course, coming out there and saying that, look, we weren't warned at all. You now have news coming in about Fujairah. Fujairah is one of those iconic ports, and also an oil facility where a lot of the oil is, after extraction, kept and then transshipped to different countries. The idea is to absolutely halt work there. So no oil goes out of the UAE, the Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz is shut, and then on the other side also impact production. When that happens and you're using really low-cost weaponry to do it, you're not bleeding, it's the adversary that begins to bleed. And wealth begins to sweat, so to speak. And you have a situation also where you are engaging the interceptor systems, the missile shields, etc. So you're also exhausting the military munitions of your adversary. So all these countries will begin to fire their munitions to intercept these low-flying drones, and some of them are very potent, and we've seen how Ukraine, in that theater there, in the Ukraine-Russia theater, in Ukraine itself, the Russians used Iranian these particular drones to great damaging effect. So you're going to see the same kind of tactical ploy being used. And what Iran therefore is doing is sort of escalating the costs. It's a war of attrition. These countries begin to feel the heat. They also need to obviously once more redeploy weapons, get more weapons, and then once they have their stockpiles up and ready, then they counter the second wave. The idea is that if there's enough depleted, then Iran can come in and deploy some of its heavier weapon systems, some of those hypersonic missiles that cause so much damage. So that's the whole idea. It's playing the waiting game. Now, whether it can or whether the Americans succeed and the Israelis succeed in getting into Iran as they've been doing and flattening out more command and control structures to even stop Iranians from coordinating, it's really a matter of time. We don't know which way this is going. So the idea is to break command and control in Tehran before it can try and press all these different stratagems into service.
But it looks like there is no let-up as far as the fighting is continuing on the ground. And the latest that we are gathering is that there is a direct attack, or at least there is an attempted attack in Israel. Alarm sirens are sounding in Jerusalem and surrounding areas due to missile launches from Iran. If I could just give you a sense of where exactly this is transpiring. This is Jerusalem. This is where those sirens are currently being sounded. This was Amman in Jordan, where just a short while ago we were seeing sirens. We were hearing sirens being sounded there as well. This is where Iran seems to be targeting at the moment. Jerusalem is where we are hearing those sirens. Amman was just about 20 minutes ago or so. That's the area largely where Iran seems to be targeting its missile strikes at the moment. But that's not to say that that is the only place where targeted strikes are happening, Griha, because we're also learning of information that's trickling in from Qatar now.
Absolutely, and this is what we are in fact looking at. Another piece of breaking news that we'd like to put out. Qatar in fact has gone on to say that it has thwarted all attacks at the airports there. Iran's army says that its forces have launched attacks on Israel and a US military base in Qatar as the war is raging on for a fourth straight day. But Qatar there going on to mention that it has thwarted all attacks. In fact, Poonam there with the map, so she'd be able to place Qatar there so that you exactly understand the kind of dynamics and the heft that we are seeing at play here. Iran constantly going ahead and claiming that it's pounding these areas, but Poonam, Qatar now playing a very,
so like
very
I was pointing out, these were the two areas initially where we saw the attacks, which was in Israel and in Jordan, which was in Jerusalem and in Amman. But like I said, it's not limited to that particular area or that particular region. This is where we're seeing some strikes as well. We've seen certain attacks in Qatar. We're hearing of some sirens that are being sounded there. Qatar has come out and said that they've thwarted these attacks. We've seen certain ports in Oman that had also seen certain strikes. There were parts of Riyadh yesterday where we had seen some of these debris actually falling. There was the US Embassy in Riyadh that was also a target of these particular strikes. So this entire region, in fact, Bahrain was not left untouched either. That's somewhere that we also did see some sort of debris falling, some sirens that were sounded yesterday as well. So this entire region, if you see, the UAE as well, these parts of the region of the Gulf, they have been touched as well as far as these Iranian attacks go. It's not just Israel that is a direct target of Iran, but Iran has made it clear that any of these countries that seem to even look like they're on Israel's side, they will have to bear the brunt as well.
Absolutely. And Poonam, we are back on the entire fog of war logic, because once again, Qatar saying they have thwarted any kind of attack that's coming from Iran. Iran, on the other hand, is saying that they have gone on to attack the US base in Qatar. And that's another, we know how big is the US base in Qatar. There was an attack earlier as well after the 3 nuclear facilities were pounded by US and Israel the last time around. And that's when the retaliatory strike happened at the US airbase in Qatar. But now again, counter narratives that are in fact coming into play here by both Qatar and Iran. In fact, we are also now learning about various explosions that have been heard in UAE, Bahrain and Jordan, as Iran, we are told, is deploying drone swarms. So there are a swarm of drones that we are in fact looking at in these areas, UAE, Bahrain, Jordan, all of these places where there are explosions that are being heard. So constant escalation that one is learning of as far as these regions go, even as the narratives, at least official ones that are emerging from all of these areas, really say otherwise. Poonam.
And the risk that Iran is running at the moment is that if all of these countries, if the Gulf coalition actually comes together with the United States and its military support, Tehran will not have too much to go on. They do not have the economic strength to balance it. At the moment, they may seem like they do have the military heft, at least if you keep the United States out of this region, which is exactly what it's trying to bank upon, or so it would seem. But Rahul, as far as the long game is concerned, can Iran actually afford to stretch this out if the United States and if this entire Gulf coalition comes together?
See, it's a cat and mouse game. What the US and the Israelis are trying to do is to degrade very quickly the command and control structures in Iran. The hope is that the Iranians then cannot control any of their launchers, they cannot control any of their operation headquarters in different districts, different parts of Iran, and there is a breakdown. And then everyone is sort of acting independently of each other, and there's confusion, there's no coordination. Now, on the other side, the Iranians are trying to break the resolve of the Americans' allies, because it's here where the bases are. These are the front lines from where the action is taking place. So Iran then sends these drones across, engages some of these defenses, some of these pass through the cracks, and there are obviously signs of damage, and there is debris falling and so on and so forth, and people are spooked, and there is a complete shutdown of the airspace, markets, workplaces, everyone goes into a sort of shell shock. The idea being that you sweat these countries out. Now, it's very interesting because Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson has come out to say, claim that pressuring Gulf countries would lead to a return to negotiations is false. So they're saying that this battle of attrition that Iran is waging is not going to work on us. We're very firmly with the Americans. The point is, at what stage in this conflict will these countries begin to say that this cost of supporting Trump is bleeding us economically? It's no longer viable. If the Iranians can hang in there, then they will be able to make the time frame stretched long enough for these countries to feel the pain. If they can't, if they fold up, this plan goes into cold storage. So that's really what's happening. It's a cat and mouse game, as I told you.
And it's really who will blink first, or at least that's what they're waiting to see. But do stay on with us, Rahul. We are getting more information that's now coming in. And this is what Iran is now claiming, that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the IRGC, they are claiming that they know locations of Netanyahu's meetings. They are going on to warn that they would unleash more intense attacks on the United States and Israel together, because this war is now entering day 4. They are now threatening that it's Netanyahu's life that is at risk. You targeted our supreme leader. Your head of state is also going to be at risk, and the next target, Iran says, is going to be Netanyahu. They're also claiming that they have heard of his movements, or they've heard of his meetings, and he will be attacked based on that intelligence. How true really is that, Griha? Well, that's anyone's guess, because like I said, it is also a psyop sort of a situation that is going on. Tehran would want to project an image of being strong, of being able to retaliate. Whether they can actually track Netanyahu's movements and target him, that's something only time will tell.
Absolutely. And Poonam, let's go back to the news that we broke early in the morning, where we learnt of how Ali Khamenei was eliminated. It was about traffic cameras and AI usage by Israel. The data that was with them for years on end, they used that to track the, in fact, movement. And now we are seeing a counter narrative pretty much on similar lines that is coming in from, in fact, Iran. And the earlier statement, in fact, Rahul, I'd want you to weigh on this. The earlier statement where Iran, in fact, spoke about how they have access and any kind of radar target as far as Netanyahu's office is concerned, that was dissed completely by Israel, saying that it's fake news.
Absolutely, Griha. In fact, I'm going to take this forward with Rahul at the moment. In the morning, what we were also being told by our in-house security analysts, Adrian Fontanellas and Tim Cooper. In fact, Tom Cooper was also going on to indicate that there is much intelligence sharing happening between Iran and China, which is the interesting aspect, Rahul, we are looking at, because there's a lot of chatter about the Israeli intelligence sharing with the United States. But how do you weigh in on Iran receiving these intel inputs from China?
Well, this is very interesting, and thanks for bringing this in, because what we've been seeing over the last few years is the Chinese have developed technologies that allow it to actually look very closely at geographies from space. So they've got a whole array of these spy satellites, and the resolutions are better, if not better, at least as good as those that the US have. So this is a big change in the global sort of balance of power when it comes to espionage.
And in fact, when you're talking about espionage, just today we've received inputs from Manoj Gupta, who's also gone on to talk about how technology sharing has happened between Iran and China. But the question also is, where is China on the battlefield?
Well, China won't be on the battlefield because most of its munitions are basically designed to protect its own geography. So they haven't thought of anything that can project beyond their geography. Yes, they have missiles and so on and so forth, but it is not really a country that has either engaged itself military campaigns overseas. It has always sold arms and provided logistical support, intelligence and so on and so forth. But you haven't really seen, like the Americans have done, or even the British have done, boots on the ground in foreign territories. So that has never happened. So this is a leap too far for China. China can provide weapon systems. And if you really look at the map of Iran, and we're going to try and get Poonam to look at the map of Iran, if Poonam can help us with that map of Iran, it will be cool, because you see to the east of Iran, you see that there is a contiguous border, albeit through parts of the Pamir Knot, where in fact you have ingress into China. So if ever the Chinese want to supply Tehran weapons, they can bring them through that land corridor.
And do you see this as a tit for tat? Because till yesterday there was a lot of misinformation doing the rounds about Netanyahu's location. First they said he's in Greece, then Berlin, and then he finally made that appearance in Beersheba, where he openly admitted that he was very much in his country and he was not really running off anywhere. So now the Iranians coming out with this information that they know where he is also trying to tell him that we've got eyes on him.
This is psyops. But on that note, suspenseful note, we're just going to take a very short break. We'll be right back and pick up the thread of that conversation with Poonam and the rest of the team.
We got limited time. What we're going to do is, now this is what's happened. I told you when we come back from the break, we are going to try and refocus on another region, and that's this region. So let's come back here and understand what's happening here, especially with this nation, Pakistan. What's happened is India has, and Manoj Kumar Gupta getting this, Daniel Scheinman has also put us the map, that India is doing an exercise in this region, and there is a NOTAM that's been issued in this region. So there is NOTAM that's issued here. What happens with the Pakistanis who are fighting over the Durand line? There is activity in Balochistan. They are supposed to send support for the Saudis, and they are worried about this NOTAM. Yes, Tom Cooper and then General Kulkarni.
What happened? First, the Durand line itself. And before I speak on the Durand line, let's work on that. There is going to be electronic suppression. And this electronic suppression is going to cause problem to the IRGC also. Remember that there. Because much that now most of these people over there are going to be on their own. But talking about Pakistan and India and talking about Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Durand line.
Yeah.
The 2,700 kilometers Durand line, 1,400 kilometers runs along Balochistan.
Correct.
And the rest of it is with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Yeah.
They have a 900 kilometer line boundary of Balochistan with Iran.
Yeah,
That
this is the
Yeah,
Baloch boundary with Iran. Yeah, yeah. This is the Baloch.
Balochistan.
This is the Baloch one.
This is
Yeah.
Balochistan.
Huh.
And therefore, Balochistan has been logistically sustained from Iran. It is not being sustained from Pakistan. So Balochistan has a problem. That's the problem between Balochistan and Pakistan. Because the
Balochistan, there is a
sustenance is
major
coming from Iran.
insurgency against Pakistan. And in Pakistan, there is the insurgency of the Pakistani Taliban.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
That
Pakistan
is
is at
TTP.
war with the Taliban in Afghanistan, additionally. to that.
Additionally,
So Pakistan is right now at war, at least from their point of view, in this direction, and of course they always hold a strong portion of their army along the border to India.
And now they are also supposed to airlift and send support
Yeah, good luck
towards
with
Saudi
that.
Arabia
Yeah,
and conduct, exercises here. Interesting that they are supporting Iran, but giving security collaboration with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
So,
and promising bases if necessary to the
Pakistan
United States.
is in a catch-22 situation.
Yeah.
They don't know which side of theirs has now got to be covered because they've had very badly from Balochistan. They're having bad times with Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They are not happy. Saudi deal has put them in a fix with Iran. So Pakistan really doesn't know, and I'm sure America would want a pound of flesh from Pakistan.
yeah, we've got this footage. This is where the India NOTAM area is, not so far away from Rahim Yar Khan. This is the NOTAM, that airspace reservation that's been announced by the Indian Air Force for a joint exercise. What do you think is the intent behind this, Tom?
Well, to run an exercise.
Yeah, but
And Pakistan, just to remind them that India is still here. It's as simple as that. Nobody wants to provoke. I mean, I know the Indian government, how it operates, or at least understand it. I do not say that I know it in person or something. But I understand the way it operates. And in this situation, it just remains Islamabad. Guys, we are watching what are you doing over there, and now we are going to run an exercise because we have the right to do so.
yeah, and they're running an exercise in this portion here.
Yes.
In this portion, that's where the exercise is. The Pakistanis, meanwhile, are conducting sorties and exercises here.
Yeah.
They are getting active in this region.
Sorry.
Yeah. So they are conducting activity in this region. They are stretched here, they're stretched here, they're stretched here, they're stretched all over the place. There is also internal strife that is happening with the Shia population. What do you think is going to be the impact of this conflict on this nation and this region? Do you think there is going to be trouble in Balochistan? The Baloch are going to
Let me
get...
explain this way.
Yeah.
Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with CNN News 18. We are keeping you updated with every development as far as the fury that's raging on in the Gulf. Right now, inside the CNN News 18 studio with my colleague Poonam. And Poonam, we have constantly been keeping our viewers up to speed with every visual that we've managed to access, vetted it first, and only then are we putting it out. So what do we have right now?
Absolutely. We are also talking about claims that are being made by both sides. So let's start about what Israel is talking about at the moment. And the IDF has released this particular video where they claim that they have struck top leadership's compound in Tehran. These are the visuals that have been put out by the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Forces. This is the compound that they have marked, saying this is where the top leadership of Iran was. This is where Israel has struck, going on to say that they had struck right at the heart of where the political military leadership was in Tehran, and this is proof, they claim, of how they took out Ayatollah Al-Khamenei and everyone else that was in the compound on that particular day, on Saturday, when that attack did take place. In fact, we're talking about attacks coming in from both sides, and like I said, both sides are releasing videos, making claims, and this one is being released from the Iranian side. In fact, Tehran Times was the one that released this video.
Yeah, absolutely. And this one that we are putting out now, we have been talking about how another oil field has been attacked, this time by Iran. This is coming in from UAE. This is the Fujairah oil field there, very, very close close to Oman, and that's where this strike has happened, at the very Oman port. The first strike so far that we are talking about, and this one is the visual where you see smoke bellowing, and the official version that has come in from the UAE is that these are minimal damage that has happened because of this oil field that saw twin drone strikes by Iran. They were in fact intercepted by the UAE.
And we're talking about multiple countries in the Gulf region that are at the target. And this one is coming in from Saudi Arabia. In fact, the capital in Riyadh, where the US embassy was attacked. This was where, Griha, we saw yesterday that there was some drones that had struck that particular US embassy compound. There was minimal damage, is the confirmation that came in both from Riyadh and from the United States. But the fact is that US embassies across this particular region are at the receiving end of Iranian strikes.
Right, absolutely. Another set of visuals that we will put out for our viewers. But right now we are getting some breaking news on the broadcast. We are in fact learning, and this is coming in from the Foreign Ministry in Qatar, that Iran's action will not go unanswered. This is a major assertion that has come in from Qatar Foreign Ministry. They are saying that Iran's action will be responded to equally and with opposing force. They also claim that they have sufficient stockpiles of interceptors to deal with the ongoing threat. So this is a big assertion there, Poonam, that's coming in, particularly from Qatar Foreign Ministry, where so far, in fact, we have been discussing about how the Gulf has been impacted because of the expansion of this strike by Iran. But now this counter that's coming in from the Foreign Ministry in Qatar.
And that's what the Gulf nations have been warning Iran against as well, that we right now are taking a cautious approach. That's what Saudi Arabia had also come out and said. But if you provoke us, then there will be retaliation. That's something that Qatar also now seems to be talking about. In fact, we have more information that's now coming in from Lebanon, where also we did see some sort of proxy war that was unleashed by the Iranian side. What we are now understanding is that at least 30,000 people have been displaced due to the escalation of these hostilities. This is just the beginning, Griha, isn't it? Because we are going to be seeing these numbers only climb from here on.
Absolutely, and we would want an assessment from Rahul also, who continues to be with us here on the broadcast, because Rahul, as far as the casualty is concerned, which during a war like this can be termed as collateral, but it is the human cost of war that we cannot really look away from.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing really is the beginning of boots on the ground, Israeli boots on the ground in Lebanon. They're trying to create a buffer. If you look at the map, it's very clear that they need sort of a buffer zone, because there's Syria, and then beyond that there is Iraq, and beyond that there is Iran. So the idea is to create some sort of a buffer, because it is over these two geographies, Iraq and Syria, that the Iranians are sending these missiles, they're sending their drones, and they are finding their way into Israel. So what the Israelis want is to flush out the Hezbollah, which also pose a threat, because the Iranians could tomorrow start using proxies, and they've already started doing so. The Hezbollah has come out and said that the time for niceties is over, in fact. So the Hezbollah, if it gets into this contest, then you have a proxy that will harry Israel and will create chaos within Israel. The Israelis will be diverted with trying to deal with the Hezbollah, forgetting about the greater mission, which is to flatten out Tehran and the command and post and control structures. And you saw that bombing raid that you just put out videos of, where the headquarters of the intelligence agencies was targeted. I was trying to say to you, the idea, Griha, is to ensure that the command and control structures in Iran are completely decimated, so the Iranian regime cannot basically communicate with any of its troops.
Well,
to achieve all of that, and to ensure that that remains the undiverted aspect of the plan as far as Israel is concerned, they've gone into Lebanon. And they've asked Lebanese to vacate their villages. So 30,000 people have been displaced overnight, because the Israelis have walked in and said, we're going to create a cordon sanitaire for ourselves, leave, and we're also going to go after Hezbollah. So that's really what's happening here.
And that's a clear message that is coming in. But even as we see collateral in terms of other countries that seem to be bearing the brunt. The direct fight between Israel and Iran will continue, and the latest, in fact, we're seeing is something that's coming in from Tel Aviv, where smoke seems to be rising in. There are injuries in Bet Shemesh that have been reported as well. There was a direct hit in Tel Aviv. That's the latest that we are gathering as far as attacks of Iran on Israel are concerned. These are all drones, missiles that are being fired from the Iranian side into Israel. There are several cities in Israel that seem to be particularly targeted by Iran. Ras Al Ain is one of them, Tel Aviv and Bet Shemesh, which was also targeted 2 days ago, where 9 civilians were killed. That's another piece of information that is now just trickling in. To get a sense of what exactly is transpiring, I believe Aman Sharma is also now joining us, getting us more inputs of what exactly is transpiring in the region.
Well, Poonam, what we have right now is a detailed statement being issued by India, the Ministry of External Affairs issuing a detailed statement on the conflict that is happening. The MEA is now saying that unfortunately in the holy month of Ramadan, the situation in the entire Middle East region has deteriorated significantly and continuously. India is also reiterating that it is most concerned about the safety of Indians who live in the Middle East. Nearly 8 million people of Indian origin live in the Middle East. It is Indian statement is saying that the deaths and the destruction have mounted even as normal life and economic activities have come to a halt. As a proximate neighbor with critical stakes in the security and stability of the region, these developments evoke great anxiety. This is what Indian government is now saying. There are almost 1 crore Indian citizens who live and work in the Gulf region. Their safety and well-being is of utmost priority. We cannot be impervious to any development that negatively affects them. That is what the Indian government is saying. No outright condemnation yet of Khamenei's killing, but the Indian government is very clear, Rahul, on what they are saying now.
Well, you know, the priorities are very clear. We have to safeguard our interests. The Khamenei matter, I think, has been left aside, and we've already sort of spoken and expressed our deep concern. But the point is, from oil to remittances, India is exposed. And I had put out some facts a little while back, and I'm going to read some of them to you. India imports 90% of its crude oil, as we know. So we are also highly sensitive to West Asian disruptions because, as you know, from West Asia, 51% of the supply comes in. Russia has the next 20%. Strait of Hormuz is now choked, so we're fearing that we're going to have problems on that front. LNG, as you know, is not coming out of one of the biggest LNG producers in the world.
Interestingly, Rahul, they mentioned that in the statement as well. India is saying that our trade and energy supply chains also traverse this geography. Any major disruption has serious consequences for the Indian economy. As a country whose nationals are prominent in the global workforce, India is also firmly opposed to attacks on merchant shipping. So India is clearly saying its economy could have serious consequences if the Straits of Hormuz remains blocked.
Absolutely, because look, right now we are pulling ahead. As you know, the GDP numbers were released just about 3 or 4 days ago. And you saw that the projections for the next year have also been increased. I know this is a new series, but nonetheless, we're looking at an upside. And suddenly you have this disruptive war, which is going to throw all those calculations once again out of the window. Then there is the question that you were talking about, which is the remittance economy, which is from the diaspora. What are we talking about? 1 crore Indians that live and work in GCC countries, in which UAE alone is 43 lakhs. So 43 lakhs, which is 39% of the population, 4 out of 10 are living in just the UAE. And if you break it down beyond that, Saudi Arabia is 2.7 million, so 27 lakhs. Kuwait is 1 million, that's 10 lakhs. Qatar is just under that, that's about 8 lakhs. And where are these sectors that they're employed in? These are construction, hospitality, healthcare, services. And all of these, by the way, are locked down in the UAE because of these drone attacks that have come through. So it's also India that is going to start facing the problem. And then, of course, there is the trade and business link that is also referred to in this statement.
Absolutely. I think the Indian government, by its statement, is making it very clear that India does not want any impact on its economy. It wants Indian citizens to be safe, and that is why it's reiterating.
$57 billion of our exports go to the GCC. And we are talking about perishable goods. A lot of our food, etc., goes there, and that becomes problematic. When you really look at it from that perspective, our entire focus right now is to boost our exports and find markets for our exports. That's why we've just signed, as you know, a trade agreement with a couple of Gulf countries also. And the Prime Minister is working with the government to try and forge other agreements with other countries. We've just had the Canadians here, and the Canadians have said by the year end, we're going to have a free trade agreement. We've had it with the UK and the EU. So we are moving quickly. We're also negotiating with the United States, but look at this.
Clearly, and that is why India is again reiterating its call for dialogue and diplomacy. The MEA statement saying we raise our voice clearly in the favor of an early end to the conflict. Many lives have been regrettably lost, and we express our grief in that regard. So I think the MEA statement clearly putting the record straight on what really India's priorities are. And in the morning, we saw Sonia Gandhi write a piece, asking India why it was not, condemning Khamenei's death. But I think Indian government has made its priorities very clear through this long and detailed statement.
She said silence was abdication. Without actually in any way taking position, I just want to state some facts before I bring in both Griha and Poonam. The facts are that even the UPA in its time did not take a position, for example, when Gaddafi was ousted by, again, a regime change operation.
Or when Saddam Hussein was assassinated.
Saddam Hussein was assassinated, hung actually. He was captured and then hung. Or even when you've had regime change in other quarters of the world. So there is a little bit of hypocrisy there, and clearly it's born out of a sense of political compulsion.
And back to you in the studio.
Right, absolutely. Rahul and Aman there, thank you so much for that assessment. India is making it amply clear that they have stakes in the region and they want de-escalation very, very soon. But here, look at what we have for you in the studio. We are looking at the global collective. Where do the, in fact, alliances lie? What are the blocks that one is looking at? If you take a look at this world alignment block here on the studios in the wall, there you see the big block here, which is of course led by the United States of America. That also goes on to include Israel, the UK of course, and also France, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, basically all the Gulf nations. They go on to form this one block that comes under West, and there is an anti-West block clearly with Iran, Russia and China, and that's why this entire Strait of Hormuz that also Rahul was referring to, and how India's strategic interests and also the energy flow that in fact happens from the Strait of Hormuz has been blocked. The other countries, their vessels have been blocked, but there are two countries, their vessels are being allowed to pass, and that strategically is also China. Russia to an extent doesn't cross the Strait of Hormuz that much, but China has been granted that leverage even as Iran goes on to announce that blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. So this is what we are talking about, Block 1, which is a Western bloc, which is where you see, of course, the global powers like US, UK, France, and there is Block 2, which has, of course, Iran, China, and Russia. We will need Rahul's assessment, all this, and India's position, so to speak, and we'll expand onto that thought, Rahul, that you were making earlier, now that the statement by the Ministry of External Affairs is also out.
Yeah, thanks, Griha, there for that. Yes, we put that out so beautifully, didn't we? It was a very clear division between the East, really, and the allies there in the West, so to speak, which is this bloc that is supporting the United States. I remember my mind goes back to that famous quote by Henry Kissinger that to be a friend of America is fatal, actually. An enemy is bad enough, but being a friend is fatal. A large number of these countries that had tied up with the Americans, given them bases in exchange for petrodollars, as the term was, because they were selling oil to the Americans, and the Americans said that, look, we can take care of you, we can provide you a security shield, you do your business, you sell us the oil, we'll take care of your strategic as well as your external security interests. These countries went into this arrangement, and today the Americans are calling the favor back, and you have a situation where the entire Gulf is now in chaos. And a large number of these countries, as you know, founded their reputation on providing stability. So they said that, look, a lot happens in this area, but we're immune from it. It happens between Israel and Lebanon and Iran and Iraq, but here we are in a little island of our own, so to speak, where in the Gulf and across the Strait of Hormuz, there's tranquility. We are moving towards a service and financial economy, much like Singapore and London had done in the past. And a large number of them were transitioning away from fossil fuels because, as you know, these are non-renewable energy resources. So after a point in time, they're going to run out. So these countries were building their own economies. There are a lot of infrastructure that was created, real estate to actually attract expats, top professionals, and money, investments. And all of that today going up in smoke because of this sort of war between the two blocs. And India has done well, not hypothecating either its security or its interest to any of these two blocs. So I think we've done well by not picking sides.
But will India feel the impact or not?
Let's go straight across to IDF spokesperson Ben Cohen, who joins us from the front lines, really. Thank you, Ben, for speaking with us. What's the situation right now in Israel? What are we expecting by the way of timelines? Is this war going according to plan?
So I just returned from the bomb shelter from a siren that was just in the area. We started this operation, Operation Roaring Lion, on Saturday morning when the IDF and the US Armed Forces started a joint operation intended to do one thing, and that's eliminate an existential threat, a threat that's relevant to the state of Israel, to the United States, and to the world at large, and that's been proved over the last few days. The strike started on Saturday morning when we eliminated more than 40 senior Iranian commanders, including Supreme Leader Khamenei, and they continued over recent days as we struck aerial defense targets, ballistic missile targets, and other Iranian terrorist regime targets in Tehran and in Iran at large. Over the last 36 hours, the Hezbollah terrorist organization, the Iranian terrorist regime's main proxy, made a strategic mistake and decided to fire dozens of rockets and UAVs at Israel, and at this time, incongruent to IDF strikes and US Armed Forces strikes in Iran, the IDF is striking Hezbollah terrorist organization commanders and targets in order to eliminate that threat on Israeli civilians.
So, of course, we're hearing that the new Iranian defense minister has been eliminated in a fresh wave of strikes from Israel, but what we're seeing also is resistance coming from Iran. They seem to have hunkered down. They're sending these drones. Many people are saying that this is a strategy where they are trying to exhaust your munitions, the Iron Dome, patience of the Gulf allies. Is this what Iran's game plan is, or are they actually not being able to react using some of their hypersonic weapons and other bigger weapons because of compulsion? What's exactly happening? From your perspective, how do you read this?
So I can tell you that after 2.5 years of war, and after the 7th of October, the IDF has learned that we never underestimate our enemies. We understand the threat that the Iranian terrorist regime poses. And as far as it goes to their strategy, I can tell you one thing for certain, and that's that they have a strategy to target and hurt civilians specifically. This isn't just a message, it's concrete intelligence we have at hand. They're sending those ballistic missiles and their drones to civilian areas, not just in Israel, but in the entire Middle East.
Okay, well, what we're also hearing is that the longer this war continues, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about timelines, but the longer this war is continuing, costs are also escalating, as we know. Right now, I'm hearing that oil is up by about 8 to 10%, silver is up by 11%, the Strait of Hormuz is completely blocked. The new Iranian defense minister, of course, has been eliminated, and I just discussed that with you, and you're doing a fantastic job of trying to eliminate the top leadership. But is that really having an effect? Can bombs substitute for a ground invasion and affect regime change? So one is that question, and the longer we obviously stay in this war, there are these knock-on effects. So how do you react to that?
So we operate in accordance to clear military objectives. And that military objective is to eliminate that existential threat, those ballistic missiles, the launchers, the infrastructure, to eliminate the ability of the Iranian terrorist regime to operate their proxies on our borders, as we see with Hezbollah, and to eliminate the ability of the Iranian terrorist regime to pose a military threat upon Israel and the Middle East. And we will continue to do that for as long as the political echelon asks of us. We have many targets at hand. We continue to strike all the time, and we'll do that for as long as need be. But I want to make clear our target is to eliminate that military threat. And the IDF, in contrast to the Iranian terror regime, strikes military targets.
There are some experts who say that your stockpiles will fast deplete and you will then have to sort of recalibrate. Is there a danger of that?
The IDF has been at war for 2.5 years on more than 7 fronts. We've been prepared to operate on all of those fronts, and we've been able to continuously protect ourselves on all of those fronts. We have the capacity and the ability to keep operating for as long as we'll need to, even in multiple fronts at once, in order to protect Israeli civilians.
Can you explain the reason behind crossing the border once again into Lebanon and launching what some people are saying is a ground offensive? What's the idea behind that?
Of course. So on October 8th, when Hezbollah made the decision to start firing indiscriminately rockets and UAVs at Israeli civilians, Israel made a choice to evacuate tens of thousands of civilians from their homes in northern Israel. After October 7th, we understand that we can't allow for a reality where terrorist organizations on our borders move our civilians away. For that reason, overnight IDF troops situated themselves in an enhanced forward defensive posture. And I want to emphasize, this isn't a ground invasion. We have IDF troops on the northern side of the border with Lebanon in order to protect ourselves from Hezbollah, because we understand that there are civilians in the north and we need our IDF troops to be able to protect them from the terrorists who can get in their way.
Explain to us a little bit about the strategy that has been employed, because what we're seeing is that there is a constant barrage of missiles that are coming out of Iran or drones that are coming out and somehow making it across the Strait of Hormuz or the Gulf and landing in the UAE and other geographies. How is that happening if you have aerial domination?
So again, the IDF operates in coordination with the United States Armed Forces and other allies in order to do aerial defense as effectively as possible. The Iranian terrorist regime has very clearly proved over recent days that they are not just a threat to Israel and to the United States, but to the region at large. They're firing ballistic missiles in every direction. We do the best within our operational capacity to defend ourselves, but we understand that there are risks. There are risks involved when you have a terrorist regime with hundreds of and thousands of ballistic missiles that they want to fire on civilians.
I want to come back to that original question. The Americans have now come out and said that regime change was not the objective. Trump has come out and said it. Hegseth has come out and said it. Rubio seems to be suggesting it. Do you share that?
So again, as said, the objective is very clear. It's to eliminate that existential threat that we have on the state of Israel and at large, and that's a military threat. It's the fact that the Iranian regime, since Rising Lion, which is the operation the IDF conducted last year in June, have set out a goal for themselves to manufacture 8,000 ballistic missiles by 2027. Now imagine for yourself for a moment, there was a hit a few days ago in Bet Shemesh in Israel, a synagogue in Israel that gets a direct impact, 9 people are dead. Imagine 8,000 missiles that can each create that direct impact. That's an existential threat. So we have a military objective, and that military objective is to remove the existential threat that the terrorist regime prevents on us. That's what we're striking, military targets.
Well, Ben Cohen, thank you very much for speaking with me. Let's just follow me. Thank you very much. We're going to check back with you in just a few days, but here we are joining the Take 3 XL. Lovely to see you.
Well, yeah, you know, interesting conversation. Let's just pick it up from there itself. What Lieutenant Ben Cohen actually had to say, that it was after Roaring Lion, last year, the 12-day war, that it was not in Israel that they said death to Iran. It was not in Israel that there was a clock tower that said that set a clock countdown, and it was not the Israeli Prime Minister who set down a countdown clock back saying that by 2027 we've got to set up 8,000 ballistic missiles and we need to wipe out Israel in the next 2 years. Iran, yes. It happened in Iran. So Israel's point has always been, we've never said death to Iran. It's the Iranians who are under Khamenei who have said death to Israel, death to America, let's kill all Jews. Tom Cooper.
I beg to differ a little bit in this regards, because rhetoric as fiery and as venomous as that of the Iranian regime, without defending it, is one thing, and the ability to actually do something is an entirely different situation. That's why I always say Iranians can cry as much as they like that they are going to wipe out Israel, but they can't do that. On the contrary, as we can see, Israel can, especially with US support, bomb Iran up and down almost as it likes.
Yeah.
Not entirely as it likes, but it is fair enough.
But that's also true that from 2024, 2025 till 2027, even now, Iran has significantly amped up its ballistic missiles cache. If you see right now in the last 2 days, Zaka is also with us and viewers, let's get this. The estimate is that they have at least 600 missiles that have been fired.
Already, yeah.
Already. So, and they are saying we're just getting started. So that means unless they're sitting on a stockpile of medium to short range and of course long range missiles of about 3,500 plus missiles, they're not going to be able to make this boast.
So look, Anand, I've been saying this even yesterday, I'm saying this today. Iran has a finite number of missiles, right? And whatever they can expend in this particular war, because the Iranian nation is going to continue even beyond these few days of the war, will have to be, let's say they have X number of missiles, it'll have to be X number, whatever the factor is.
Right.
So the most conservative estimates say they have 2,000 or 3,000 missiles.
Right.
The most expansive estimates say they have upwards of 10,000. So my point is, it's a finite number. At some point, all this firing of missiles will have to stop. Even with the drones, as cheap as they are, I mean, we were talking about it, $2,000, $3,000, whatever it is, $10,000. The point is that there's a finite number of ammunition that the Iranians have. And that's going to run out at some point. Look, what is at play? This is the big picture as I see it. Iran needs to seek revenge. Their supreme leader, their spiritual guide, their political and, the man who really controlled that state over the last 40 years is dead. And dead brutally. I mean, I don't want to get into adjectives and stuff, but he got killed like a dog. I'm sorry to say this, but that's really what happened. Now, the point is, Iran needs to do something to be seen as avenging that, right? That's their way out. So how do I see this war ending? It has to be either of two possibilities. One is Iran needs a way out, which is that they have to take a high-value American target out. Look at what happened last June when the 12-day war concluded. How did it end?
Yeah.
It ended with Iran hitting the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, which is an American air base. Nobody died because people were all evacuated, but at least they hit an American air base and they could tell back to their people.
So that was their off-ramp.
That was their off-ramp.
Yeah.
What is the off-ramp now? Right now, there is no off-ramp, which is why they are continuing
to hit. The off-ramp right now, Rahul, what they have said, Largiani has actually said it, and they have said that it's Bibi Netanyahu.
They're not going to hit Bibi Netanyahu. I said this yesterday. I've been inside Bibi Netanyahu's office.
They may
no
not
one's
hit.
going to hit him.
They are saying exactly what the Israelis said about Khomeini, saying we know his movements, we know where he is going, we know what he is doing. They are now out for Netanyahu's head. That's where they will settle, because clearly they don't want to touch Trump. But here it is Netanyahu's head. And someone like Trump says it was either me or Khomeini, and Khomeini had to go. That was also something which Trump said. So how do you see this? We'll get into the nuclear aspect and also Trump shifting goalposts through the course of this conversation. But first, your thing about what is Iran's off-ramp here, which is going to perhaps de-escalate this.
Look, first of all, I don't believe that the Iranians are looking to actually take revenge. I think the regime there is looking to survive. With the Trump administration and others now coming out and saying that, look, at the end of the day, we're not looking for regime change. I don't see where the end is, where this war is going. What are the objectives now? If it wasn't regime change, then what was this about? Okay, you've eliminated a few people, but more people will step in.
Yeah.
And if they step in and the US and the Israelis say, oh, we've neutered their weapon systems and this, that, the other, fine. The war might end. There might be an off-ramp offered, or maybe they will come to the table, but the regime won't go. And after another 4 years or 2 years or 3 years, you'll have another build-up.
Yeah.
And you'll have another replay.
Yeah.
So this war is ending in inanities to me. Or going there. Now, the Prime Minister is talking to the Sultan of Oman, the Crown Prince of Kuwait, over the Gulf War. I think the best bet now for these Gulf nations also sort of come together and form a bridge. They're the ones who should sort of talk to Iran, and they should talk to the United States, pull back and say, guys, I think the time has come when you redefine what you're up to here. Come to the table, let's start the negotiations.
Right.
They can't become part of the problem because they're clearly bleeding, and we've got a situation where the MEA has mentioned that we're worried now about the so-called oil shock hitting us.
Right. Agree? Disagree? Tom Cooper?
I agree, disagree. For example, I agree with Zaka when he says it depends on missile stock. I said right away this is going to be a game of numbers. The point is, however, that also the Israeli and US missile stocks cannot be fantastic because just yesterday they plus the US customers of Patriot missiles in the Gulf has wiped out the entire year worth of production of Patriot missiles. Just yesterday. This is something like 600 missiles. They are gone. They are spent. And between others, in order to shut down 3 US aircraft. So I don't see where should this go. It is the same story with all wars Israel has initiated already since 1956. There's always somebody on the other side who is a lethal or mortal threat for the country. Then they invade. There's a war. There are sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands.
This war is, where is it going?
And every time,
I don't see any clear objectives here.
Let's understand. First, they said they want a regime change. Now they killed the Khamenei, but there doesn't seem to be a regime change at this moment happening because they've immediately got somebody in place in Ali Reza, and he seems to be following the Khamenei's line very clearly.
This is not how Iraq played out. When Saddam was sort of hounded out of office, and Chemical Ali and all his cabinet was sort of found and shot dead, the regime imploded because it was actually a minority Ba'athist party which controlled a majority.
Sunni,
Exactly.
Sunni,
Here,
largely
the
Shia
situation is that these people are from the larger population. There is a homogeneity. So people will just step in to say we have to defend the larger interests of Iran, and if we become Shahid, no problems.
You know, sorry, I beg to differ on this. People tend to sort of paint Iran as this homogeneous society. It is not. Only 60% of Iran is Persian. The remaining 40% is Kurds, Azeris. There are all kinds of other Baloch. There are all kinds of other minorities. Now, here's the thing. When they hounded out Saddam Hussein in 2003, it was unfinished business from 1991. The father Bush could not finish it. The son Bush came and tried to finish it. When they hounded out Saddam Hussein in 2003, it took them 2 months between the launch of the war, I think it was called Operation Desert Storm, and then 2 months later they found Saddam Hussein, those famous words, we got him.
We got him,
right? Here, the principal objective of the Trump administration, certainly for Mr. Trump individually, was to smoke out Khamenei. And he's got that on day one. Tomorrow, like this morning, daybreak in the US, if Trump wakes up and says, that's it, America is done, I'm done, I'm ending this war, Israel cannot continue this war on its own. The rest of the region cannot continue this war on its own. It depends entirely on the United States.
No, it does.
But having said that,
the rest of the region?
Hang on. What is there to disagree about? Hang on.
So the point is Trump has got whatever he wanted.
All I'm saying is that
he can stop the war tomorrow.
That this war is going nowhere. If Trump pulls out, you know what people are going to say? That you started a conflict in the region. All of us have been burnt by this, and you walk away from the table without being able to kick out the regime.
Because he's got what he wanted.
No, hang on. One second. You might have the bragging rights, but at the end of the day, that's the end of it.
That's the problem.
The regime is still there.
Like he's looking for anything other than bragging rights.
The regime is still there. The women are still going to be sort of, unfortunately, terrorized. Young civilians who have risen up or at least expressed their support for the outside world are still going to be tormented and jailed. They will be back, and it'll be an only matter of time.
I hate to break it to you. Trump doesn't care.
It doesn't matter.
He doesn't
about
care.
Trump.
He doesn't care.
It doesn't
All
matter
he
about
wanted
Trump.
was the head of the snake. He's got the head of the
It doesn't
snake.
matter. What did I start by saying? What did I start by saying? That this regime doesn't want revenge. It wants to survive because it just knows that, look, there are interests, there are business interests. This is not some,
business interest.
These are business interests. No one walks away from the business interest. You have Pakistan. The Pakistan army is in charge of Pakistan. Why? Because they own businesses, they own golf courses, they own resorts, they own hotels, they own everything. And so does the Iranian regime.
Right. totally taken, point taken. Now my question is, Iran has gone ahead and bombed Qatar, it's gone ahead and bombed in Saudi Arabia, it's gone bombed Bahrain, although they say US air bases, these nations are saying, you have come and attacked our sovereign soil. We didn't expect you to do it. Are these nations going to keep quiet, or are they going to push for certain kind of revenge now?
They would like to hit back on Iran, but the problem is that is then going to position their regimes as fighting on the side in an alliance with Israel. And they can say as much as they like, oh, Abrahamic Accords and we are great friends now and whatever else. But they know that the population does not like this idea.
All right. Okay, let's take this forward because there are 2-3 other aspects which I wanted to cover. One is Steve Witkoff and Iran's position. Does Iran have nuclear abilities, weaponizing abilities? Because Steve Witkoff claims 60% uranium enriched. That's what the Iranians themselves claim. 460 kilograms of it, and we can make 10 nuclear bombs with it. At what level of enrichment of uranium can it be weaponized? And are the Iranians close to a nuclear bomb? Then were the Saudi concerns right then?
You can make a dirty bomb already with 10% of enriched uranium. This is not the question. The question is just how effective is it then? Is it really, destroying an entire city or not? That is the difference.
And can you deploy and deliver it?
Enriched, yes, and that is the next question. Do you have a platform which can reliably deploy it? Because this is what killed de facto the Pakistani operation last year, that they had no platform which could reliably deploy a nuclear weapon against India. So this is why they were defeated, and they then called for, please, let's sound the ceasefire. Okay, this is one start.
Which is one of the reasons why people said you should have gone in and finished the game.
Finished the game, yeah.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's another point. But
that's a different point. But let's go back to Iranian capability to actually make a nuke. They can make a nuke. They can make a nuke for 20 years or something. And that was the point. I don't know why is nobody taking this seriously. This nuclear fatwa by Khamenei from, 2006. This is a religious law. Everybody is happy to declare Iran for theocracy, but nobody cares about the religious law in this theocracy. So, really, if you have a religious law which says you are not permitted to assemble and keep assembled a nuclear weapon, this is how I interpret the text of that fatwa, then it means that, dear IRGC, shut up, sit down, you can have all the pieces of the bomb, that is very nice, but you are not permitted to build them together.
If that is the case, why were the Saudis so hell-bent? Because now it is coming out, viewers, and to all of the, the gents here, that it was not Israel that pushed US. It's been the Crown Prince and Saudi Arabia for the last month and a half that's been pushing the US to move in and attack Iran.
I don't buy that.
They say that it's the Saudis because they were very, very... See, let's try and piece together certain circumstantial evidence. Let's just say the Saudis move with Pakistan to sign a nuclear cooperation deal. The
Defense cooperation.
Defense cooperation and also nuclear technology.
There's no
that was the second one. The first meeting was defense. The second meeting was about exchange of nuclear. No, it's not about where Pakistan is. That's when we started saying Pakistan is trying to get into a rent-a-new program because when that meeting happened with the Saudis. Now, why were the Saudis moving in this direction, especially nearly a year after the 12-day war? This whole aspect of Iran is going to become nuclear did not start with Israel. Israel has been saying this for a while. Of late, it started with the Saudis. So there is some merit to this entire speculation.
Look,
that's what I'm saying.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think Iran was anywhere close to making a nuclear bomb. They were maybe years away. According to America's own intelligence, they were years away from making a proper actual nuclear bomb, and more importantly, being able to find a platform to deliver that nuclear bomb. Why did this war happen? This war happened because first Bibi Netanyahu, and then subsequently he managed to convince Donald Trump that they have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to take out a man who has been chanting death to America and death to Israel for the last 40 years.
Okay.
Trump wanted to do this for his legacy, Bibi wanted to do this for his legacy, and they have it now. Now the question is, how does the war wind down? There's only one or two ways in which the war winds down. One is either Iran gets an off-ramp, they get a high-value American target, they either hit the aircraft carrier, I don't know how they'll do that, or they hit a commander who's overseeing the operations, whatever it is. They need a high-value target to take down and then show to their people that Khamenei's death has been avenged. Or the second way in which this can be done is if the Trump administration finds a candidate who is pliable enough, who says, okay, I'm going to put an end to this, like the Delcy Rodriguez of Iran.
Right.
What did they do in Venezuela? Again, it's apples and oranges, but at the end of the day, they shifted one guy out. They removed one guy, found the second in command and said, you take charge and we've got a deal. What did Trump do with the Houthis? People tend to forget this. He started this whole bombing campaign of the Houthis right after he came to office. He did that for about a month and then he realized he's not going to be able to stop the Houthis or at least decapitate them in a way that they stop attacking ships on the Red Sea. What did he do? He cut a deal with the Houthis. A man who can cut a deal with the Houthis surely can cut a deal with the Iranians. That's what Trump will do.
Somewhere they don't seem to be wanting to cut a deal now. Now the Iranians don't want to cut a deal. Rahul, why do you think Trump has shifted the goalpost?
I'll tell you why. The Iranians they could be opportunistic and make the pretense of wanting to come to the table to give themselves some breathing room. But fundamentally, they won't compromise with the US because this is not a legitimate regime. They need an enemy to stay relevant, just like Trump needs an enemy to keep away from. This is not about legacy. This is just, that's a peripheral conversation. This is about the economic ruin. This is about the Epstein files. This is about several other things, including an election that is looming on the horizon. If Trump even is thinking, I don't know, if he's thinking of another term, you never know with him, he needs at least something to go back to his party to say, look, here, I'm still sellable. On the other side, you have Bibi Netanyahu, who's facing elections in another 6-8 months or 6 months.
Yeah, and he's been quite under the pump by
my dear friend,
domestic
not
politics.
under the pump.
Not only.
His approval ratings are by his socks.
And not only that, but he's also going to be prosecuted because he was supposed not to get re-elected or get involved in politics. Whose shoulders does he stand on? The Zionists. A hard right. Are those going to compromise with Israel? No. See, you've got to understand that over the last 2.5, 3 years, Israel has found one excuse after the other to prolong that war that began on October 7th. So if it's not going into Gaza, then it's going down some other rabbit hole like the Hezbollah in Lebanon and this, that, the other. Then it was Iran, then back again. So they've just wanted to extend this. They've created an enemy. This is wag the dog. This is classic wag the dog.
Yeah, but this is also very, very expensive for a country like Israel. War is not cheap. Now,
for Israel, not so much because they get covered by US taxpayers.
Exactly, that's the thing.
It is more expensive for US taxpayers than for Israel, actually. Especially considering that the mass of ammunition is of US production, because Israel has no heavy metal industry.
Tom, there is a lack of enthusiasm in Trump's base for this war. The MAGA base does not like long wars. Trump came to power saying that he's not going to get entangled in long wars. So if anyone is going to sort of pull out of this war or put an end to this war, it is Donald Trump. He
absolutely
to extend this.
In fact,
I'm absolutely in agreement with you.
The Nobel Prize has gone out of the window now.
No, he doesn't care for the Nobel Prize because I don't think he's going to get it. The other question is China. What's happening right now, viewers? We are looking at a blooming energy crisis. Every nation buys oil and keeps stock for at least about 30 to 60 days. Even Bharat would have got its barrels in place for at least 30 to 60 days. But then if this war continues, the energy crisis looms. Europe is already facing a price up on its LNG because Qatar has stopped production. What's China's game here? Because a lot of the oil, if the Strait of Hormuz closes, they are going to make sure that even Chinese ships don't go there because the US or the Israeli will come and bomb it, or somebody else will bomb a Chinese tanker and say, listen, nothing close. If ours doesn't go, theirs won't go either.
Especially Israelis.
Yeah, Israelis will do that. That's going to happen. China has already cut down. The refiner has already cut down production. What's China's game here? Because it's backing Iran. And is it going to help Iran militarily? Is it going to ensure this war prolongs, or it's also in its interest that it tries to figure out an off-ramp for Iran?
It's a good question. I would say that they are certainly going to continue doing like if they are doing nothing and just monitoring while doing the usual plausible deniability, which is, for example, supplying surface-to-air missiles to Iran via Afghanistan down to Zahedan or to Mashhad or to whatever the cities are in eastern Iran.
Right.
By flights of nocturnal flights of their transport aircraft. This is quickly done and nobody can say anything against this. beyond that, they are going to wait for their moment, because we should not forget one thing. This is almost unknown in the public, that Israel and China are at war. At least their intelligence services are at war already for 20, 30 years. They are killing each other, especially in Africa, bombing each other, assassinating each other, and so on and so on. And the Chinese, at some point in time, they went so far that they have positioned the camera, captured a Mossad operative, and then assassinated him in front of camera and sent the video to the Israeli embassy.
Wow, this is something which is not relevant or not known to this part of the world as much, that there's so much happening in Africa. So the Africa dimension comes into play, and that Israel, so that's what Tom Cooper is saying, China and Israel have been at war, their intelligence agencies.
So they are going to sit and wait patiently until a certain point, and then when it hurts too much, then they are going to act. In what fashion, that's something I cannot predict.
We've got limited time, 3 minutes, so let me start with you and then we'll circle back to Rahul and Zaka and then end here. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's silence has seen a lot of domestic politics. He's not said much about, he's not commented about the Khamenei killing. He has called up various heads of state, but nothing about the war from him, from his handle. You think that's a right position? Because many are questioning the silence. The opposition is questioning his silence.
Well, look, I don't know anything at all about Indian politics. I can say only following. He has to care about the country of 1.4 billion. And he's somebody who thinks about developing this country for the next 20 years in advance. In this regards, he's already not just one, but several magnitudes better than any other politicians I know around.
Okay.
So now to get dragged into this idiocy, I wouldn't be keen to be in his position and get dragged into this. I would.
So that's your assessment, that
hold silent and keep quiet.
Better to stay silent and keep quiet. Rahul?
Yeah, I think, look, fundamentally, Iran, is it really a great friend? I mean, if you were just forced to flip a coin and choose a side, I still go with the Israelis a little bit. At least they've helped us when, we've been down and out in conflicts too. The Iranians, I'm sorry, they've put the Muslim world first on many occasions.
Yes.
So, yes, there is one complication though. There's one wrinkle, and there is a port, the Chabahar port, in which we had made huge investments. The idea was to try and thwart the Gwadar, China, Pakistan axis.
Yeah.
And that's my worry. And I think the calculation perhaps in New Delhi is this. It's better to be on the winning side. So when things are divvied up by the new regime, or by a regime that might be perhaps more conducive to working with the West and so on and so forth, we can use our good offices to get back into Chabahar, like we did in Afghanistan, for example, when there was a transition. We got those contracts to build and so forth. And of course, the Americans then walked out, and we were worried that all those contracts would go out of the window. Then we had to do business with the Taliban. We sort of held our nose and we did business. I think the Indians are sort of seeing this perhaps as another way of getting back into the equation by just keeping out of it and letting somebody else come in. And not upsetting
interestingly,
equations.
there is a thought process which says that was the Ayatollah really the religious head of the Shia, because the descendant of Ali is in Najaf.
And just one little point. Little point.
Yeah.
We also have a huge trade equation with the GCC countries, which we can't sort of jeopardize.
Yeah, and we've got friends in the Gulf areas. We've got friendship with everybody.
My view is that India's already taken its side. It was evident even before this war began. India's on the side of the US and the Israelis. We can't publicly say it because there are domestic concerns and so on and so forth. But I think India is very clear. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Prime Minister was in Israel 48 hours before this campaign began. I think that was...
But there's no truth to all this doing the rounds that it's the Prime Minister who went and gave Ayatollah's coordinates to the Israelis. Sorry.
Who said that?
No, it's all doing the rounds on social media.
Wow.
Okay. There is a big press conference going on, so as we call this a wrap, let's quickly go across to that.
Which ensures continuity and sustainability of interception in all types of weapons for a long time, and to maintain preparedness and readiness for protection of the sovereignty of UAE. In this media briefing, we will highlight certain topics. The first topic is the latest developments in the field, operational field. The Ministry of Defense dealt with 186 ballistic. We destroyed 172 missiles, 13 of which went into the sea and 1 into the territory. Also, we checked 12 drones and 57 fell down in the territory. Also destroying 8 drones and 8 cruise missiles. There were 68 injuries and some damages which are medium and low. We would like to highlight that the sounds that we hear in different areas in the UAE are the result of interception of ballistic weapons and attacking the drones and crew. This proves the readiness of the Ministry of Defense in the UAE and armed forces and departments concerned in all departments, which confirms that we are dealing with all types of threats. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will show you some samples of attacking our jet Mirage 2000, attacking the aggression of the Iranian forces. This is a brief of sample of intersection and destroying of the attacks and aggression by the cruisers and jets of from Iran. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to highlight the drones that were damaged and missiles that were damaged by our Air Force. We start with this ballistic tactical missile, which Qiyam, which was damaged. We intersected hundreds of these missiles. Another missile, cruise missile, which is a threat that we face, and it is difficult sometimes to deal with these crews, but we destroyed them and intersected them through our defense forces in the UAE. Also, Shahid drone 136 was intersected. Hundreds of these were destroyed and damaged.
We got limited time. What we're going to do is, now this is what's happened. I told you when we come back from the break, we are going to try and refocus on another region, and that's this region. So let's come back here and understand what's happening here, especially with this nation, Pakistan. What's happened is India has, and Manoj Kumar Gupta getting this, Daniel Scheinman has also put us the map, that India is doing an exercise in this region and there is a NOTAM that's been issued in this region. So there is NOTAM that's issued here. What happens with the Pakistanis who are fighting over the Durand line? There is activity in Balochistan. They are supposed to send support for the Saudis, and they are worried about this NOTAM. Yes, Tom Cooper and then General Kulkarni.
What happened? First, the Durand line itself. And before I speak on the Durand line, let's work on that. There is going to be electronic suppression. And this electronic suppression is going to cause problem to the IRGC also. Remember that. Because much that now most of these people over there are going to be on their own. But talking about Pakistan and India and talking about Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Durand line, the 2,700 kilometers Durand line, 1,400 kilometers runs along Balochistan.
Correct.
And the rest of it is with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Yeah.
We have a 900 kilometer line boundary of Balochistan with Iran.
Yeah, this is the Baloch boundary with Iran. Yeah, this is the Baloch one.
This is Balochistan. And therefore, Balochistan has been logistically sustained from Iran. It is not being sustained from Pakistan. So Balochistan has a problem. That's the problem between Balochistan and Pakistan.
Balochistan, there is a major insurgency against Pakistan. And in Pakistan, there is the insurgency of the Pakistani Taliban.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And then Pakistan is at war with the Taliban in Afghanistan, additionally. So Pakistan is right now at war, at least from their point of view, in this direction, and of course, they always hold a strong portion of their army along the border to India.
And now they are also supposed to airlift and send support towards Saudi Arabia and conduct, exercises here. Interesting that they are supporting Iran, but giving security collaboration with Saudi Arabia.
So, and promising bases, if necessary, to the United States.
It's a catch-22 situation. They don't know which side of theirs has now got to be covered, because they've had very badly from Balochistan. They're having bad times with Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They are not happy. Saudi deal has put them in a fix with Iran. So Pakistan really doesn't know, and I'm sure America would want a pound of flesh from Pakistan.
Yeah, we've got this footage. This is where the India-NOTAM area is, not so far away from Rahim Yar Khan. This is the NOTAM, that airspace reservation that's been announced by the Indian Air Force for a joint exercise. What do you think is the intent behind this, Tom?
Well, to run an exercise. And Pakistan, just to remind them that India is still here. It's as simple as that. Nobody wants to provoke. I mean, I know the Indian government, how it operates, or at least understand it. I don't say that I know it in person or something. But I understand the way it operates. And in this situation, it just remains Islamabad. Guys, we are watching what are you doing over there. And now we are going to run an exercise because we have the right to do so.
Yeah, and they're running an exercise in this portion here.
Yes.
In this portion, that's where the exercise is. The Pakistanis, meanwhile, are conducting sorties and exercises here.
Yeah.
They are getting active in this region. Yeah. So they are conducting activity in this region. They are stretched here, they're stretched here, they're stretched here, they're stretched all over the place. There is also internal strife that is happening with the Shia population. What do you think is going to be the impact of this conflict on this nation and this region? Do you think there is going to be trouble in Balochistan? The Baloch are going to get...
explain this way. Let me start with the...
So the big question is, how will this war in the Gulf end? It's no longer just America and Israel on the one side and Iran on the other. The entire Middle East, America's Gulf Arab allies from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Oman have all been dragged into this wider regional conflict. How may this possibly move towards some kind of cessation or culmination? I'm now joined by a very special guest. Professor Jeffrey Sachs is a leading economist with the Columbia University. Thank you very much, Professor, for speaking with us. First of all, what is your assessment of what has happened over these last 3 days? This joint American-Israeli airstrikes on Iran, the taking out of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran. What do you make of what's happened over these last 3 days?
This is a reckless, illegal, and very dangerous action. This is a blatant violation of the UN Charter, and it is leading to regional war, obviously. It has to stop. The way for this fighting to end is for the United States and Israel to leave, because they started this. This is why it happened. There was no motivation for it other than basically the hegemonic aspirations of Israel to control the Middle East and the United States to control the world. And other than that, there was no imminent threat. There was no reason for this. Killing the religious leader as well as the head of state of Iran was a poisonous action, the U.S. and Israel made a terrible mistake, and they have to stop the fighting.
President Trump's motivations, I'll get to Israel in 1 second, but President Trump's motivations in this war was to eliminate Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran. He's done that. He's achieved that already within the first 24 hours of this war. Why is he still continuing this war then?
How can a president of the United States have as a goal the murder of the head of state of another country? It's barbaric. If that's his goal, it's barbaric, it's illegal, it's vulgar, it's dangerous. Having said that, the United States should stop any further attacks and just leave.
Do you believe that Trump really cares about regime change? I mean, look at what he did in Venezuela. There was no regime change. He replaced one man with a woman. He can do the same thing in Iran.
He can't do anything other than commit murder or kidnap presidents, so everything is delusional. You are correct, though. He can just go home, which he should do. Leave the rest of us in peace. This is a move completely against the interests of the United States of America and against the opinion of the American people, who are 3-1, that is 75% to 25% against this action.
So why do you think he's continuing it, particularly for a president who came to office saying he's not going to, launch these endless wars in the Middle East or anywhere else in the world? His MAGA base doesn't approve of it. Why is he still stuck in this?
I think that there are two reasons. One, the U.S. deep state, which is led by the CIA, has global hegemonic aspirations. Those continue. And the CIA is the main driver of American foreign policy, not the President of the United States. The second reason is Israel. Israel is tightly connected with the CIA through Mossad. This is a long-standing plan. Netanyahu said yesterday this is the culmination of his 40 years dream. This isn't something that just came up last week because negotiations bogged down. This is something that Israel has been calling for decades. Israel has a very unusual stranglehold on the United States, including the CIA, which is in very close partnership with Mossad. So this is a deep state operation. It is also a part of a broader U.S.-Israeli hegemonic approach. It's not disconnected from what happened in Venezuela, because that's also part of the idea. The U.S. wants to control the Americas. It wants to control the Middle East. It wants to have the lever over oil. It wants to tell India whether to get oil or not to get oil, and at what price to get oil, and at what price not to get oil, and whether to trade with Russia. Now it wants to say whether to trade with Iran, who's going to get control. So this is a matter of control. It's absolutely reckless and completely in violation of every international standard.
The Prime Minister of India was there in Israel 2 days before Israel and America launched this operation against Iran, and many are saying that that's not a coincidence. What do you make of that?
I hope it is a coincidence. This action by Israel is a criminal action, in my view, and a very dangerous one. And I hope that India, as a president of the BRICS this year, upholds the UN Charter. The United States and Israel have blatantly, vulgarly, and dangerously threatened the UN Charter with this action. The UN Charter, Article 2, Paragraph 4 says that no nation may threaten the use of force or use force against another sovereign state. That's straightforward. So this is absolutely a vulgar and dangerous violation. And Netanyahu explained it, as I said, clearly. He's been dreaming of this for decades. I've been making that very point for years and years and years. And then Netanyahu came out and confirmed it. This is his lifelong ambition, to bring the United States into a civilizational war with Iran. How reckless is that?
Iran has responded by targeting some of these Gulf Arab allies of the United States, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait. Why do you think they're doing that, and how may the U.S. choose to now respond to this?
Well, they're not targeting those countries. They're targeting the U.S. military bases in those countries. This is a difference. These countries and many others are essentially occupied by the United States. When you have a U.S. military base, you're occupied by the United States. You lose your freedom. You lose your maneuver. You have the CIA hosted in your own country. You're always looking over your own shoulder. What Iran is doing is attacking a network of U.S. military bases along the Persian Gulf.
America was the main security guarantor for all of these countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar. That security guarantee seems a bit weak now, given what's happened in the last few days.
I often quote a famous adage of Henry Kissinger, who said that to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. Countries that rely on the U.S. security guarantee go under, usually by the United States itself, which turns on you. But to be a friend of the United States is absolutely to put yourself in peril. Look at Ukraine. The United States said, we have your back. You will join NATO. And Ukraine is being destroyed because a regime came to power that said, we'll go with the U.S. rather than neutrality. And the consequences are devastating. For these Gulf states, it's a big mistake that they think that their security comes from the United States. Their insecurity comes from the United States.
So, finally, Professor Sachs, how do you see this war ending? How do you see this war ending, and by when do you see this war ending?
I know how it can end, which is that the United States and Israel should go back to their own homes and stop bothering other people, and the war would end. Iran would stop fighting and the war would end. That's how it should end. How it will end, I cannot say, obviously, because we're led by irrational and dangerous people in the United States and Israel. So they have lusted for this war against their own publics, against all logic, against all strategic considerations. And these are very dangerous people. And in the United States, we do not have a constitutional order. We do not have Congress that plays a role. This is basically an executive branch decision-making by the CIA and by the White House. So it's very dangerous and very unpredictable. This makes no sense, this war. It's dangerous for everybody. It's dangerous for India. It's dangerous for China. It's dangerous for the BRICS. It's dangerous for Europe. It's dangerous for the Middle East. It's dangerous for the United States. It was a war of choice that never should have happened.
All right, Professor Jeffrey Sachs from the Columbia University, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN
Good
News.
to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break here on the program, but news and updates continue right on the other side.
We got limited time. What we're going to do is, now this is what's happened. I told you when we come back from the break, we are going to try and refocus on another region, and that's this region. So let's come back here and understand what's happening here, especially with this nation, Pakistan. What's happened is India has, and Manoj Kumar Gupta getting this, Daniel Scheinman has also put us the map, that India is doing an exercise in this region and there is a NOTAM that's been issued in this region. So one, there is NOTAM that's issued here. What happens with the Pakistanis who are fighting over the Durand line? There is activity in Balochistan. They are supposed to send support for the Saudis, and they are worried about this NOTAM. Yes, Tom Cooper and then General Kulkarni.
What happened? First, the Durand line itself. And before I speak on the Durand line, let's work on that. There's going to be electronic suppression. And this electronic suppression is going to cause problem to the IRGC also. Remember that there. Because much that now most of these people over there are going to be on their own. But talking about Pakistan and India and talking about Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Durand line, the 2,700 kilometers Durand line, 1,400 kilometers runs along Balochistan.
Correct.
And the rest of it is with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Yeah.
They have a 900 kilometer line boundary of Balochistan with Iran.
Yeah, this is the Baloch boundary with Iran. Yeah, this is the Baloch one.
This is Balochistan. And therefore, Balochistan has been logistically sustained from Iran. It is not being sustained from Pakistan. So Balochistan has a problem. That's the problem between Balochistan and Pakistan. Because
there is a major insurgency against Pakistan. And in Pakistan, there is the insurgency of the Pakistani Taliban.
Absolutely.
Yes. And then Pakistan is at war with the Taliban in Afghanistan, additionally. So Pakistan is right now at war, at least from their point of view, in this direction, and of course, they always hold a strong portion of their army along the border to India.
And now they are also supposed to airlift and send support towards Saudi Arabia and conduct, exercises here. Interesting that they are supporting Iran, but giving security collaboration with Saudi Arabia.
So, and promising bases if necessary to the United States.
It's a catch-22 situation. They don't know which side of theirs has now got to be covered because they've had very badly from Balochistan. They're having bad times with Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They are not Saudi deal has put them in a fix with Iran. So Pakistan really doesn't know, and I'm sure America would want a pound of flesh from Pakistan.
Yeah, we've got this footage. This is where the India NOTAM area is, not so far away from Rahim Yar Khan. This is the NOTAM, that airspace reservation that's been announced by the Indian Air Force for a joint exercise. What do you think is the intent behind this, Tom?
Well, to run an exercise. And Pakistan, just to remind them that India is still here. It's as simple as that. Nobody wants to provoke. I mean, I know the Indian government, how it operates, or at least understand it. I do not say that I know it in person or something. But I understand the way it operates. And in this situation, it just remains Islamabad. Guys, we are watching what are you doing over there. And now we are going to run an exercise because we have the right to do so.
Yeah, and they're running an exercise in this portion here.
Yes.
In this portion, that's where the exercise is. The Pakistanis, meanwhile, are conducting sorties and exercises here.
Yeah.
They are getting active in this region. Sorry. Yeah. So they are conducting activity in this region. They are stretched here, they're stretched here, they're stretched here, they're stretched all over the place. There is also internal strife that is happening with the Shia population. What do you think is going to be the impact of this conflict on this nation and this region? Do you think there is going to be trouble in Balochistan? The Baloch are going to get...
Explain this way. Let me start with the start in Pakistan.
Okay.
Pakistan is broke.
Okay.
Bankrupt. Okay. And this is not since yesterday, but for some 50 years, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, at least. Okay. What was it? 24 IMF programs in Pakistan and something like that? Okay. Now, the newest invention, so to say, in Pakistan was to prompt the Chinese to invest and borrow $120 billion to Pakistan.
Out of 195 countries in the world virtually, there are almost 45 countries which are sucked into this battle, with 32 in NATO, with 12 almost over here, and Afghanistan and Pakistan. So just these 45 countries involved today in some way or the other.
One way or the other involved. So now Pakistan is broke. And they have this huge bill, and the Chinese want their money back. They say, hey, sorry, but we are not giving your money, our money to you just like that. So Pakistan depends on IMF, which means on Trump's agreement
USAID and
to
America.
let IMF pay Pakistan, give Pakistan money so it can pay back Chinese credits. So this is a silly situation. This in turn means Islamabad is going to do whatever brings money in order to stay liquid. And if the Saudis say, hey, we are going to pay you 5, 10 or some whatever billions in order for you to send a brigade of armed forces, yes, they are going to do that. This is the point, and this is how they think and how they act.
But their nation's prime minister has endorsed support to Iran. and its nation's military is going to support and send military aircraft, including JF-17 and of course AWACS and maybe an oil tanker on top to help the Saudis fight the Iranians. So the civilian government says we are with you, Iran. The military says we are going to fire at you, Iran. So that's what is the nature of Pakistan. We got limited time. What we're going to do is, now this is what's happened. I told you when we come back from the break, we are going to try and refocus on another region, and that's this region. So let's come back here and understand what's happening here, especially with this nation, Pakistan. What's happened is India has, and Manoj Kumar Gupta getting this, Daniel Scheinman has also put us the map, that India is doing an exercise in this region and there is a NOTAM that's been issued in this region. So there is NOTAM that's issued here. What happens with the Pakistanis who are fighting over the Durand line? There is activity in Balochistan. They are supposed to send support for the Saudis and they are worried about this NOTAM. Yes, Tom Cooper and then General Kulkarni.
What happened? First, the Durand line itself. And before I speak on the Durand line, let's work on that. There is going to be electronic suppression. And this electronic suppression is going to cause problem to the IRGC also. Remember that there. Because much that now most of these people over there are going to be on their own. But talking about Pakistan and India and talking about Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Durand line, the 2,700 kilometers Durand line, 1,400 kilometers runs along Balochistan.
Correct.
And the rest of it is with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They have a 900 kilometer line boundary of Balochistan with Iran.
Yeah, this is the Baloch boundary with Iran. This is the Baloch one.
This is Balochistan. And therefore, Balochistan has been logistically sustained from Iran. It is not being sustained from Pakistan. So Balochistan has a problem. That's the problem between Balochistan and Pakistan.
Balochistan, there is a major insurgency against Pakistan. And in Pakistan, there is the insurgency of the Pakistani Taliban.
Absolutely.
Yes. And then Pakistan is at war with the Taliban in Afghanistan, additionally. So Pakistan is right now at war, at least from their point of view, in this direction, and of course, they always hold a strong portion of their army along the border to India.
And now they are also supposed to airlift and send support towards Saudi Arabia and conduct, exercises here. Interesting that they are supporting Iran, but giving security collaboration with Saudi Arabia.
So, and promising bases if necessary to the United States.
It's a catch-22 situation. They don't know which side of theirs has now got to be covered because they've had very badly from Balochistan. They're having bad times with Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They are not happy. Saudi deal has put them in a fix with Iran. So Pakistan really doesn't know, and I'm sure America would want a pound of flesh from Pakistan.
Yeah, we've got this footage. This is where the India NOTAM area is, not so far away from Rahim Yar Khan. This is the NOTAM, that airspace reservation that's been announced by the Indian Air Force for.
बाहर निकल के प्रकृति का धन्यवाद देते हैं, यही बस्तर की खासियत है। इंद्रावती की नदी पर ये एशिया का सबसे बड़ा वाटरफॉल इस वक्त आप देख रहे हैं, जिसे हिंदुस्तान का नायग्रा फॉल कहा जाता है। इंद्रावती और बस्तर, इन दोनों के बीच में एक बहुत मजबूत संबंध है। ये नाड़ी है बस्तर की, ये जीने की, रहने की, यहाँ पर जंगलों की, यही तो जान है। यही है परंपरा, संस्कृति और बस्तर की जड़ें।
Brought to you by all new MG Hector. Air India Premium Economy, the premium you deserve. PNB MetLife Life Insurance, always ready for life. And MG Windsor, India's #1 EV.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Let's bring you a quick look at the top 6 developments coming in at 6 p.m. In a fresh satellite imagery, the IDF shows precision strikes on Iranian leadership compound. Numerous munitions dropped
on the presidential office. Latest footage shows destruction to Dubai's Jebel Ali port. Plumes of smoke were seen rising from the port as Iran continued its retaliation. Iranian missiles struck the Beersheba tech area, damaging buildings near a major technological park. Reports indicate that a facility linked to Microsoft was amongst the sites impacted. War escalates and so does the casualty number. Iran says death toll from US-Israel strikes rises to 787. India expresses grave concerns over the West Asia war, says 1 crore Indians work in the Gulf and security and stability of the region impacts Indian economy. Oil Ministry says it will source petroleum products through non-Strait of Hormuz routes. Qatar and UAE lash out at Iran over the continuous missile strikes on civilian areas and critical oil infra projects. UAE reiterates it is fully prepared for war and it can fend off aerial threats for an extended period. All right, let's first get you the big story that we're tracking right now, which is the American response or the American justification to this entire war. The West Asia conflict escalating into a bloody, high-stakes confrontation. The recent decapitation strike against Iran's leadership was hailed by Washington as a preemptive defensive measure. Yet Tehran has refused to surrender, retaliating with missiles and drone attacks. American officials insist they are hitting key military targets to neutralize threats, but the world and even Americans at home remain confused about why the attacks began. Was Iran truly an imminent threat, or did the US act prematurely, sparking a wider war? Now, the stakes are enormous. Ethical questions, unclear objectives, and inconsistent messaging threaten American assets, while Gulf nations too continue to get pounded and global allies watch nervously. We will, of course, get you exactly what is the frame of mind as far as these Gulf countries are concerned, because all of them have come under attack now and are under continuous attacks. Even today, through the afternoon, we've heard of more and more key installations, even a tech park, for example, coming under attack under these strikes. So as the missiles continue to fly, the question is, has America truly justified its actions in Iran, or has it plunged the world into another unpredictable war? Take a look at how this has gone on so far as the justifications are concerned. Now, first, Donald Trump launched the rhetoric saying that when they are done, by the time they are done, he told the Iranian people, take over your government. He said this would be your best chance in a long time to have your own say. The message was clear. The US was openly calling for regime change. But next, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, when he spoke last evening, he signaled a complete shift. He said, and I quote, "This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change." He also went on to say that they don't actually believe in those endless wars of the past. This is not Iraq, he said. This president understands that they're not into nation building or democracy building. Suddenly, the official line was no longer about overthrowing the government, even as the leadership was decimated. Then, Secretary of State Marco Rubio framed the operation in a completely military term, as he said that the real reason was to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and naval threat. The focus has moved on to neutralizing Iranian capabilities rather than political goals. The American message has evolved from regime change to denial of regime change to defensive mission, leaving allies and, frankly, the larger public scrambling to understand the US objectives. And Marco Rubio was pressed on this. Even he was frustrated while explaining the reasons.
I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission.
Now, by all accounts, it is not going to be as cut and dry or as single focus. America's objectives are multifold, even if the messaging has been a little bit confusing. So let's break those down for you. And those objectives are going to be possibly met in a long-term war or conflict now, as Donald Trump has indicated. First, of course, is to eliminate, as they called, the imminent threats which are posed by Iran's growing missile program and hostile actions. Donald Trump suggested one of them could actually be capable of landing in American soil, which cynics say is not the truth. American forces, their allies, all of them are top priority. The second priority is to stop Iran's nuclear ambitions that has not been hidden by America, to ensure that Iran can never obtain a nuke. Even here, though, there are critics who believe Iran wasn't close to developing one. Third, the United States is aiming to destroy Iran's missile capabilities, its naval power, hitting ballistic missile sites, naval assets, and critical military infrastructure. Fine. Fourth, leaders say one goal is to punish Iranian support for terrorism in the region, something that has even been targeting America for nearly 50 years. And they've not shied away from saying that this was a terrorist regime, this was an unjust, evil regime. Fifth, the campaign is meant to stop Iran's wider power projection across the Middle East, limiting its influence and ability to destabilize neighboring states. And finally, the operation is a means of supporting the destruction of key Iranian leadership that can't be ruled out. And of course, that is something that they had started off with, giving that hope to the Iranian public. Donald Trump said, "I promise help to the Iranians, and I have delivered on that." With so many aims on the table, though, the debate is whether these objectives can be achieved without a prolonged regional conflict, which everyone would want to avoid. But the big question is also this today. Was America pushed into the military action and abandoned the talks that they were holding only because Israel pushed them? Well, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio's statement certainly seemed to suggest that, and Iran has latched onto it. So take a look at what Marco Rubio said. He said, "We knew that if Iran was to be attacked, even by someone else," he's talking about Israel here, "they would immediately come after us, and we were not going to sit here and absorb a blow before we responded." So he basically suggested Israel gave us no choice. They were going to attack. We absolutely had to become a part of it. And look what Iranian foreign minister said. He says, Rubio admitted what we all knew. US has entered a war of choice on behalf of Israel. Shedding of both American and Iranian blood is thus on Israel firsters. He said this is Israel first policy, not America first. He also added, American people deserve better and should take back their country. Listen in to what Marco Rubio had said. This statement could well become an albatross around the neck of both US and Israel.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
Right. We're also, of course, getting more breaking updates that the Prime Minister has now spoken to one more Gulf country, Kuwait's leadership, after all of these attacks that have been continuing. So he's, remember, spoken to UAE and other countries in the last 2 days. He has now spoken to the Premier in Kuwait as well. This is the big update that we're getting right now. We'll get you details as we get it as well. So he has spoken to the Amir of Qatar, and there have been earlier talks with the other leaders as well. Remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been consistently condemning the retaliatory strikes by Iran on these Gulf countries, particularly targets which are civilian in nature or key infrastructure. And that has not gone down well either with the Gulf countries or with their allies. And India has definitely stood with its Gulf country allies in this hour, condemning the unplanned attacks from Iran, not just against US bases alone, but also attacking civilian infrastructure, those living in residential buildings, hotel buildings, airports, while people were there inside airports, etc. I am also joined by Sanjay K. Verma, former Indian diplomat, joining us. Sir, your first comments on the Prime Minister speaking to so many leadership of the Gulf countries. One more Gulf country that he has spoken to today, clearly setting out an agenda as far as India is concerned.
Prime Minister Modi has one thing on his mind, and that is the safety of India's citizens spread all over the Middle East. And that is why he is connecting with all the leaders in the Middle East to seek their assurances that Indians will be safeguarded. Second point, which is extremely important, is when it comes to a regime change, which you mentioned a little early. Regime change doesn't mean just taking out a leader. That regime has been there for last 40 years plus. And therefore, the entire structure of the government is the regime. I don't think that objective has been reached. And just knocking out the supreme leader of Iran does not really mean changing the regime.
Just hold your thought there. I'm going to come back to you, sir, on your thoughts on the messaging that we've been seeing from America and how other countries would be perceiving it, including their domestic audiences and opposition to Donald Trump in America. I want to go across to my colleague Akansha also, who's joining us. Akansha, give us the latest on the conversation that the Prime Minister has had.
Right. So it's very important to highlight that while Prime Minister Modi has spoken to the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, he's not just condemned the attacks on Qatar, but he's also thanked the Emir for his support and care of the Indian community in Qatar. Now, there's in fact a significant Indian diaspora over there, and Qatar happens to be one of those liberal, moderate Islamic nations, not just apart from being a US ally. The fact of the matter is that of late in the last decade, ever since Prime Minister Modi came to power, we've seen that there's been an increase and ramping up in the overall bilateral trade relationship between Qatar and India. In fact, there are several economies that are now closing down to expatriates, and apart from the fact that when the H-1B visa crackdown started happening, people were inadvertently looking towards the Middle East, and Qatar was one viable option. So that apart, let's talk about the oil trade. Qatar happens to be one of our largest LNG suppliers, and that in itself is a growing worry given that the Strait of Hormuz has been locked down by Iran. So it's important that India stands in solidarity with one of its key bilateral trading partners. India has in fact been very supportive of all of these US allies, given that India's stance on terrorism has been amply clear that any form of terror or any form of violence or violent retaliatory measures will not be supported by India. And Prime Minister Modi has always urged for dialogue and diplomacy to take place, as has been the statement of the ME as well. Shiva.
Yes, and as it is not lost on anyone, we've got a large population of Indians working and living in these countries. So in the last 48 hours, the Prime Minister has spoken to leaders of UAE, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait and Qatar. 8 countries in total, 7 of them being these Middle Eastern countries, of course, barring Israel, that the PM was also visiting just before this attack began. Sanjay K. Verma, former diplomat, continues to be with us. Sir, I'm coming back to you. Now I want to focus a little bit more on the American messaging, from freeing the Iranian people, from the regime change, from the slaying of Ali Khamenei. Now they're kind of trying to justify their decapitation strikes, which were the first strikes, as a more larger military objective. How do you read into their messaging, and is the world buying it?
I don't think the world is buying their messaging. It's highly fragmented, highly discoherent. And the reason is basically that probably the reasoning and logics were not put in place before they went into this war. And therefore the messaging is also coming out as something which is incoherent. But there again, if the key objectives were to be achieved in a couple of days' time, that was the initial messaging. Why is it taking so long? And which means it was not only the narrative which was miscommunicated or misconstrued, but it was also the strategy which had to be reconsidered as something which was amiss.
And you know, Marco Rubio's statement, which I also read out a short while ago, where he said, we knew that if Iran was to be attacked, even if by someone else, we'd have to be a part to it. And that simply points to Israel. Is this something that is going to mount some internal questions against the Donald Trump administration, given that, you know, you have to give very clear reasons as to why you are invading or attacking a country? If imminent threat was the reason, Iran now says, this suggests there was no imminent threat to America from Iran.
See, US being a beacon of democracy, as they always call themselves, the entire thing is anti-US constitution as well. The strike should have had gotten the nod from the Congress. They had not got that. So therefore, even from the US legal point of view or constitutional point of view, the strike was missing a few legalistic points. When you come outside the US, you look at Europe. Europe is no more buying what US is saying as the narrative. Spain had asked their bases, US bases to be shut down and leave Spain. If you look at UK, the way in which it has offered its use of its bases, that is also quite discordant with the relationship that the UK always had with the US as the ally. Look at the French narrative, look at the German narrative. So there is a rift brewing in EU as well on the narrative itself. Forget about other things. The legality can be questioned by the jurists, whether international or domestic.
All right. Stay with me, sir. I also want to now talk about how United States' top nuclear negotiator has made a startling accusation, and it strikes at the heart of global fears over Tehran's nuclear ambitions, but also this might be one of the justifications America provides for going into Iran. According to the US envoy Steve Witkoff, Iranian negotiators openly told American officials that they controlled about 460 kilograms of uranium enriched to about 60%, a level just below weapons grade and far above what's needed for peaceful energy programs. That amount, Witkoff said, is enough material for 11 nuclear bombs if it was further refined. So let's break down for you how advanced is really Iran's so-called nuclear program. Remember, these are based on various estimates or reports. Nobody really knows or has an exact idea. Iran currently allegedly holds approximately 441 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. The stockpile is over 9,000 kilograms total enriched uranium mass. The challenge is that this uranium needs to be 90% enriched for becoming a nuclear arm. An existing stockpile could have been enough for 10 to 11 nuclear devices. This is what the watchdog is also estimating. Sanjay sir, I'm coming back to you. Do you think this would provide enough succor to those who may be looking for the legitimate reasons as to why US went into Iran? And could these estimates be correct?
Estimates seem to be correct, but the problem is that if the negotiations break down, do the countries go on war? And that is the main pillar of the entire narrative. So that means that if India and China is conducting a negotiation doesn't succeed, does it mean that we start inflicting harm on each other? So it's a larger global sense which we need to get out of it. From the data and details which have come out, I don't think this was good enough a reason for launching an attack and putting the entire world into darkness.
I also want to shift our attention now to the other big update, and which is that Iran has announced that it has shut down the Strait of Hormuz and warned that any vessel attempting to pass could be targeted and set on fire. Remember, this is a very important stretch between these Gulf countries and Iran, with Dubai at its closest tip, which is home to about 20 to 25% of all global oil trade, passing through this very narrow and shallow stretch called the Strait of Hormuz. This remains one of the world's most critical oil choke points, with global economies relying heavily on this. Before we talk more about this, let's also bring you another update that we're tracking. Donald Trump has released another statement. He has gone on to say on Iran, air defense, Air Force, Navy, leadership is gone. They want to talk. I said, too late. This is the message that is coming in from the American president now. Just a day or two ago, he had said, I want them on the negotiating table and I'll be happy to negotiate. Iran said, we don't want any negotiations with Washington anymore. But now Donald Trump is saying, maybe because of the continuous retaliation against its Gulf partners, that there's not going to be any more talks. He says that Iranian air defense, air force, navy and leadership is all gone. They want to talk now, but I said too late. We'll also get you more as far as this latest statement is concerned. Is this closing the doors? Is it shutting the door on any negotiations with Iran anymore? Remember, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have already warned that they're not going to stop. They have talked about a weeks-long action, and they're saying that because of Iranian response, they're going to now double the impact of their original strikes. Both Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have warned that they're going to hit Iran so badly that it would be worse than what it was earlier. We'll get you more updates on this as Donald Trump is releasing one more statement as far as the strikes on Iran are concerned. He says the Iranian air defense, the Air Force, Navy and leadership is all gone. So what does it mean for Iran, even though it continues to mount those attacks? Remember, the Iranian military or Iranian representatives have already said that their military is working independently, all units are working independently. They will do what they deem fit because, of course, the top leadership is gone. The primary attacks were already done. The secondary and the tertiary attacks will also follow, is something that both Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have already warned about. Let's go across to Rahul Shivshankar joining us from our newsroom. Rahul, big statement coming in from Donald Trump once again. Yeah, we'll go across to Rahul in just a bit, but we're showing to you on your screen the latest statement that has been released. This is a written one. Of course, in the past, he has not only released written statements, but also structured bites that he has released earlier. Rahul is back with us. Rahul, if you can hear me, big statement coming in from Donald Trump.
Yeah, very big statement. Look, many people were thinking that the fact that he had assassinated or decapitated the Iranian regime and the 50 leaders, that would be sufficient for Donald Trump to come out and claim victory and call an end to this campaign and say that, look, I've achieved what I wanted to, and tell the American people that he had done what no other American president had done since 1979, though they had tried. But that is an option that he has foreclosed by suggesting that he's not in any mood to negotiate with the Iranian regime. And this is exactly what I was saying. If this war is to have any meaning or any real end to it, there has to be regime change. So once again, you're seeing a sort of flip-flop, because Trump first said that I'm not interested in regime change. Then he went on to say this is about regime change. Then he says I'm a man of peace. Then he goes and carries out a preemptive strike, which is actually a euphemism for a decapitation strike. Then he says, well, we're not interested in regime change. We have achieved the objectives that we set out to, which is decapitated Iran's leadership, hopefully brought up a new crop of leaders which would be less radical, more open, more amenable to working with the West, and obviously declaring their nuclear program open for public scrutiny or for UN scrutiny and so on and so forth. But here, once again, he's done a U-turn of sorts by saying, well, we aren't done. We're going to go the whole hog. Obviously, this would include regime change. We won't stop Iran attacks. And this is also a message that will sort of send a bit of a chill down the spine of some of the others in the Gulf, the allies that have played host to American bases, because they will come out and say that, look, we are getting mashed here between your war with Iran and our interests. And I think a large number of balls are now up in the air, really, because the Iranians will have to factor this in. If the Americans are in it for the long haul, if Trump has refused negotiations, that means he's looking at a military endgame. And the Iranians will have to recalibrate, because if they were thinking that the US would perhaps backpedal and in about 3 or 4 weeks would perhaps end hostilities, then they are mistaken. At least this is what Trump is saying. Now, whether this is a bargaining tactic to get leverage, he's done that, of course, taken maximalist positions, even when it has come to trade diplomacy or tariff suasion. So we don't quite know what Trump's idea is, but there's been a lot of chatter amongst the experts and geostrategists that they're not seeing what the end game is without putting boots on the ground in Iran. Just carrying out these mass ballistic/surgical strikes is not going to attenuate the Iranian regime enough for them to sort of walk away from power and come groveling to the United States of America. So we don't quite know what is the agenda that is driving Trump, but quite clearly, at least as of now, this forecloses the possibility of this war ending anytime soon.
Right. Rahul, thank you for joining us and putting this into perspective. Certainly these questions are mounting now. What was the objective to begin with, and how soon can America and Israel achieve those objectives? Because as I turn to our next big talking point, this is a global economy issue now. As we've been telling you, the Strait of Hormuz has been blocked by Iran because of this war. Was it necessary to begin with and to thrust the entire global economy into uncertainty? The big question right now on everybody's mind is, what is the alternative to the Strait of Hormuz? So let me just bring to you, the Gulf region has some limited backup routes to keep oil flowing. Let's take you through those alternatives to the Strait of Hormuz. First up is the Saudi Arabia's East-West pipeline. This goes directly to the Red Sea. This has a capacity of about 5 million barrels per day, and it can be expanded to about 7 million. So let me just point this out to you on the map. This is the Strait of Hormuz, which is now blocked. This is Saudi Arabia, and on the other border of Saudi Arabia is the Red Sea. Now here is their port of Yanbu, which is also capable of sending out oil barrels to the rest of the world, although its capacity is only about 5 million per day barrels versus 20 million per day of the Strait of Hormuz. So this is one of those routes that can be employed. Of course, it's not going to be able to take it over completely. As far as this route is concerned, why is this important? Because it completely bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. You don't really need to go to that side, and you're not affected as far as this blockade is concerned. Let's also move forward as far as the other options are concerned. So like I said, moves the crude from eastern oil fields to the Red Sea, and it bypasses the Hormuz entirely. But there is another option, again a limited option, and wouldn't quite fulfill the requirement completely, which is the UAE's Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline. This goes through the Gulf of Oman. This can carry about 1.5 million barrels per day directly to the port of Fujairah, and this also makes the Strait of Hormuz blockade not important, because this is, as you can see on the map, just before the Strait of Hormuz. So this port of Fujairah is here in close to Dubai. This is before the narrowest point of the Strait of Hormuz. So even if this is blocked and nothing can go in and out to the Persian Gulf, here in the Gulf of Oman, from here at least, the ships and vessels can travel. And again, this is not going to completely replace the Strait of Hormuz, but this lies ahead of the Hormuz, enabling uninterrupted exports even during a blockade. So this is the alternative route that countries will possibly be looking at right now. We don't quite know what are the preparations that have been made as far as this is concerned. Moving on, an important aspect of the action in Iran and elimination of Ayatollah Khamenei is how the women of Iran feel and have reacted. Let's get you some of those reactions from around the world. Iranian women's national football team made headlines after what came across like a refusal to sing the national anthem during their Asian Cup opener against South Korea, a gesture that went viral very quickly, viewed as a mark of quiet defiance against a regime that particularly suppressed women. Beyond the field, women across the Iranian diaspora have also, of course, shown their shock. We're getting some more breaking updates now coming in. Iran has now said that it is ready for negotiations, but there will be no compromise on dignity. So there seem to be some developments happening very, very quickly. Just a short while ago, we had Donald Trump saying they asked for talks. I said it is too late. Iran is now coming out and saying, we do want negotiations now, but with no compromise to our dignity. Does this mean now that the leadership, the clerics, the IRGC is now on its knees? Because remember, just yesterday they had indicated that there will be no talks with Washington anymore. So the big update that's coming in right now, back to back, is that while Donald Trump is playing hardball now, saying there's going to be no more talks with Iran, their air defense and their air power, their naval power, their ground support, everything is gone, their leadership is gone. Iran is now saying that they're ready for talks, but will US now negotiate with them anymore? Has Iran lost the chance that it had maybe till yesterday evening to do these negotiations is the big question. They're saying they don't want any compromise on their dignity, but they're now onto the table after rejecting any possibility of negotiations with America just yesterday. Akansha is joining us with more on this. Akansha, this is a flip-flop on all sides.
Absolutely, and these mixed messages are not just coming from the United States, but you're also getting them from the Iranian side. Remember, the former IRGC head and part of the transition in Iran, that is, in fact, Ali Larijani, who was playing the role of a power broker, was initially reported to have said that we are ready for talks, but then he took to X and he said that no, there is absolutely no scope for talks. But now, again, a close aide to Khamenei indicating that they are indeed ready for negotiations is an indication that perhaps Iran is also now very much aware that they cannot sign up for a war of attrition. As we all know, we've been debating that Iran is finding itself extremely isolated. Look at their allies. They are nowhere around, whether it is North Korea, Russia, primarily China, one that is actually exchanging technology, providing them with intelligence as well, has in fact completely backed off in terms of providing them with any assistance, and that's a classic China playbook. But that aside, initially there were indications coming from the United States also that there could be a scope for negotiations. Sorry. But as you rightly highlighted, Donald Trump has already ruled out that possibility now. Shivani.
Yes. So what does that mean as far as the end of this conflict is concerned? Akansha, that will be the big question, isn't it? Everybody would want that maybe they can get onto the table and agree on to certain terms.
That's going to give Iran, in fact, if you look at the upper hand, that clearly is in the hands of the United States and also of Israel, because now US is going to be in a position of strength. They will ensure that they dictate the terms and conditions of a more moderate sort of a government, even if it were to be with the IRGC or say the Shia Islamic Cleric Council to be a part of that transition.
Absolutely. So we'll wait and see what could be the terms, if at all, and would there be a different Iranian regime now? Time for a very short break. My colleague Anand is joining you on the other side.
IDF spokesperson Ben Cohen, who joins us from the front lines, really. Thank you, Ben, for speaking with us. What's the situation right now in Israel? What are we expecting by the way of timelines? Is this war going according to plan?
So I just returned from the bomb shelter from a siren that was just in the area. We started this operation, Operation Roaring Lion, on Saturday morning when the IDF and the US Armed Forces started a joint operation intended to do one thing, and that's eliminate an existential threat. A threat that's relevant to the state of Israel, to the United States, and to the world at large, and that's been proved over the last few days. The strike started on Saturday morning when we eliminated more than 40 senior Iranian commanders, including Supreme Leader Khamenei, and they continued over recent days as we struck aerial defense targets, ballistic missile targets, and other Iranian terrorist regime targets in Tehran and in Iran at large. Over the last 36 hours, the Hezbollah terrorist organization, the Iranian terrorist regime's main proxy, made a strategic mistake and decided to fire dozens of rockets and UAVs at Israel, and at this time, incongruent to IDF strikes and US armed forces strikes in Iran, the IDF is striking Hezbollah terrorist organization commanders and targets in order to eliminate that threat on Israeli civilians.
So, of course, we're hearing that the new Iranian defense minister has been eliminated in a fresh wave of strikes from Israel. But what we're seeing also is resistance coming from Iran. They seem to have hunkered down. They're sending these drones. Many people are saying that this is a strategy where they are trying to exhaust your munitions, the Iron Dome, patience of the Gulf allies. Is this what Iran's game plan is, or are they actually not being able to react using some of their hypersonic weapons and other bigger weapons because of compulsion? What's exactly happening? From your perspective, how do you read this?
So I can tell you that after 2.5 years of war, and after the 7th of October, the IDF has learned that we never underestimate our enemies. We understand the threat that the Iranian terrorist regime poses. And as far as it goes to their strategy, I can tell you one thing for certain, and that's that they have a strategy to target and hurt civilians specifically. This isn't just a message, it's concrete intelligence we have at hand. They're sending those ballistic missiles on their drones to civilian areas.
Welcome to a very, very special edition of Inside the Bunker, and it's the offensive from both sides that continues to escalate, with the idea of releasing latest satellite imagery of its precision strikes on the Iranian leadership compound. Now the conflict has entered a dangerous new phase, with Iran shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, which is a channel for 20 to 30% of global oil supply. Meanwhile, the US and Iran too continue to mount the offensive against each other across land and sea. Now, in this very special edition of Inside the Bunker with the one and only Tom Cooper, what we are going to do is deep dive into the kind of tech and weaponry that's being used by both sides. We'll focus on the Iranian side today, or the Israeli side today. But first up, have a look at these pictures. Now, if you see these pictures, what are these pictures? These pictures seem to be like airplanes that have been kept outside the Mehrabad airbase in Iran. But Tom, what are they actually?
Well, that is one of the funniest stories of this war. Actually, already the last war in June. They look like F-4 Phantoms. And one has to admit they are perfectly camouflaged as well. That means yellow color, brown color, green color. Perfectly positioned. From the air, from the satellite, these aircraft look, even from the UAV, these aircraft look exactly like original aircraft. Fact is, actually, these are wooden decoys. And this entire facility serves no other purpose but manufacturing such wooden decoys. And if you check up there at top, you see here?
Yes.
That's an F5 decoy.
Okay.
Yes. So these decoys are then towed to Iranian air bases, positioned in specific positions, in selected positions.
Right.
And the Israelis are left to discover them, to find them, and to target them.
Right.
To waste their ammunition and time and so on.
Right.
So this is, as you can see, these are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Entire squadron worth under apostrophes of F4s.
Yeah.
Which are existent for no other purposes but to fool the Israelis.
Fool the Israelis.
Yes.
And do the Israelis get fooled?
Yes, they do. I can even show you a specific example if you show me the Google Earth map again.
Right.
Last year we have seen Israelis striking 2 F-14s at Mehrabad Air Base, not far away from where this workshop is.
Okay.
So they have destroyed one F-14 and we're very happy about this.
Right. We'll try and pull that up in a bit. We don't have it at the moment. We don't have the map there. But this edition of Inside the Bunker, what I want to do is for you to explain to our viewers very, very clearly what is the kind of weaponry that's being used.
Yes.
So let's start with the airplanes. One of the first things that stood out for me is that you said that the Israelis are not going into the Iranian territory, but they have aircraft that can fire missiles right into deep into the Iranian territory from the Syrian skies or the Iraqi skies.
Yes.
Right. Now, let's start with this. This is the F-15D. What is the F-15D?
This is originally F-15 was developed as an air superiority fighter, which means an aircraft made to fight air combat, only air combat, nothing else. So over the time, Israel experienced ever less resistance in the air. Therefore, it started converting its F-15s into fighter bombers. That means it started equipping them with bombs. So now the latest development, latest modification for Israeli F-15Ds, these are two-seat, as you can see, two ejection seats. Here is also SATCOM antenna. Latest modification for this aircraft is air-launched ballistic missile, which is a huge weapon, as you can see it here. This is a Black Sparrow, or one from the Sparrow family of weaponry. It consists of a booster, which is accelerating it, and the actual warhead and re-entry vehicle. So I suspect that this is one of the aircraft that was used or deployed to kill Khamenei, for example.
This could be the aircraft that was used to kill Khamenei. Why do you say that this could be the aircraft that was used to kill Khamenei?
Because the first strike, the opening strike of this war, was for the Israelis to deploy such weaponry to hit Khamenei.
What is this weapon? What is this?
This is, I said, this is the Black Sparrow, one of the Sparrow, weapons of Sparrow family. It's dropped down from the aircraft. And then it accelerates on its own.
Accelerates on its own, and then
it is not easy to launch. This is not, you know, just you fly straight and then you drop the weapon and it flies away. But the aircraft also has to accelerate to specific speeds and climb. So it's launching like this. The aircraft, you know, the missile continues on its own.
As the aircraft is launching, the missile moves forward.
The missile goes. The aircraft is best launch position is for the aircraft to be climbing. Yes. So the weapon separates and then the engine turns on and flies ballistically.
And this is also GPS marked precision in terms of 99%?
Of course, all the possible gadgets in order to make it as precise as possible. We have seen this weapon, by the way, deployed last year for the strike on Hamas negotiators in Qatar as well.
And it's a fast aircraft because it goes up to Mach 2.5 and it's got twin engines, F-100 engines. So that means there is always the option of if one engine is hit on a single engine, the aircraft can actually
Of course. It has lots of survivability built into the aircraft. But the point is, foremost, F-15 is big enough to carry such a weapon. The next point is, this is one of the weapons that India has recently purchased or ordered from Israel. This is principal reason why I'm showing it. Because in the future, India is going to have similar weapons integrated on its own.
So we've come back another one, big development, even as we'll go back to the tech aspect of it. That's the Sparrow that we've bought. But diplomatic engagement is more important for peace. Even as Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he has spoken to 8 nations already, including Israel and Oman. But he's also come out and spoken to the Sultan of Oman, and he's condemned the sovereignty violation of Oman. So Bharat is very closely, not openly making statements, but calling up nations and saying that it is important to engage and you cannot disturb the sovereignty or attack the sovereignty of neighboring nations in a war that you're fighting with a distant enemy. Somewhere this message coming across and saying that this sovereignty violation is not correct. This is even as Oman, Qatar and some of the other nations are slowly shutting down their facilities in terms of for safety, exactly trying what Iran is trying to do. But Iran is not making friends here. Bharat has got engagements, it's got a lot of trade, and also Bharatiya people who are working in these countries. And that's why not just ensuring the safety, but also calling and saying we respect your sovereignty, and anybody disturbing or impinging on this sovereignty is not right. And it obviously will not create a place for dialogue. Let's go back now. After that update, let's quickly go back to the other conversation that we were having, the F-15D and the Black Sparrow from the Sparrow family. This is a warhead or weapon head that we have tried to now acquire, and this will be fixed on our Rafale or the Sukhois?
Probably on Rafale.
On the Rafale.
And it is already in service in India.
It is already in service.
On Mirage 2000s.
On the Mirage 2000s.
It's called Spice.
This is the Spice. Okay. So this is the Spice, and that was the one that was used in the Balakot operation.
For example, this is also already one of the weapons already in service in India. Python.
Python, yes, that's the Python.
Python or Spider when launched from the ground.
Python or the Spider. Let's look at the next aircraft, the F-16C, air-to-air, air-to-ground missions. Speed is about Mach 2, F-110 or F-100 engine.
110 engine.
And yes, and one of the most produced fourth-gen fighters.
Yes.
So the Israelis are also pressing this. What's unique about this?
Well, unique is this versatility. This is an older variant, arguably, but you can always add more advanced weapons on it. And again, if you launch spies from a shallow climb at full acceleration, it flies very, very far away, up to 200 kilometers away.
Now, it also seems to be able to carry more payload. Is that true? Because it's a single-engine aircraft?
Well, carry more payload. This is relative. Generally, they're loading them just with 2 spices.
Okay.
It's only for operations over short range that they are loading them with 4 spices.
4 spices, but it's a single-seater.
Single-seater.
So there aren't 3 there because that was a trainer aircraft, and it's not even a 2-seater, so it's a single pilot.
It's just a single-seater.
So this will be a smaller and lighter aircraft?
Smaller and lighter, yes. Much smaller than F-15, roughly 50% smaller.
Yeah.
But very nimble. This is comparable. Actually, Rafale is superior to F-16.
Rafale is superior to
Yes.
F-16. Another one which is a tried and tested and which actually works for us viewers is the Sukhoi Mk-30I. Now this is also part of the Israeli Air Force. Somewhere the Russians seem...
Indian Air Force.
This is also part... This is the Indian Air Force.
Yes.
This
is one of the latest sub-variants of Su-30 Mki.
Okay. Again, Mark II, is it similar to the F-16D?
Yes. It's just bigger.
It's just bigger.
And more powerful in regards of engines than the F-15D in particular. Also 2-seater. You don't see the second seat because it's under the cockpit.
Under the cockpit, okay.
And this is now the latest sub-variant, recognizable as such, but 2 antennas here and here, which are enabling it to be linked to the ground stations, to the entire integrated air defense system of India, and to transfer the video feed from the ground up to into the cockpit of the aircraft. It means
but
whatever the ground station knows, the crew knows it as well. I have shown it here. This is a color profile I drew with my hand.
Yeah.
With Darby air-to-air missiles, also of Israeli origin. So it was also, this weapon was already integrated on this system, on Su-30.
On the Su-30, despite these weapon systems being newer compared to the aircraft which is much older, but this aircraft was able to carry or adapt. How do they do that?
Thanks to very advanced electronics, avionics, and computers of Indian origin, the aircraft is very adaptable. It means you can essentially put whatever you want on Su-30 Mki. You just need to test the separation.
So often
and trajectories and so on. But essentially you can put on Su-30 whatever you want.
You can put anything, whatever you want on the Su-30. We'll show you what all has been put on the Su-30. The next one is where it's tipped with the BrahMos. Now, how is this possible? Wow.
This is the most powerful weaponry in service with the Indian Air Force. Again, Su-30, here an older sub-variant, no antennas for the software radios, but it has a BrahMos. This is the BrahMos.
Yes.
This is what it looks like when it's packed, so to say, when it's released.
Okay.
On release, there is two small jets kicking away the cap, which is covering the intake.
Okay.
So, and then the missile accelerates on its own. Next step in the BrahMos, once it's launched, this is this is the booster.
Okay.
This falls off once the missile has accelerated to its cruise speed. So essentially, you have then this part of the missile flying away from the aircraft.
Okay.
And then just this part of the missile striking the target.
Striking the target. So the missile actually becomes smaller.
Smaller and lighter.
And lighter, so that means it's able to go faster.
Yes.
The other thing is the BrahMos' loop is something that nobody's been able to figure out. It's got an S loop, doesn't it? The cruise missile, because of which the interception of the BrahMos becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah, it can maneuver in its terminal attack phase, which means once, for example, you can program it to fly low along the ground, and the other way is to program it to jink up and then to dive up on the target in order to, for example, penetrate an underground target.
Underground target.
Like Kirana Hills.
Like the Kirana Hills.
Yes.
So this is the BrahMos as it is when it is loaded on or packed onto the aircraft.
Yes.
And then
it is between the intakes, so it's only the front part is visible when it's attached to the aircraft.
Attached to the aircraft. So this is how it looks. Then as it drops, this part breaks away.
Comes away.
The jets push this off, open up the cap, so then it becomes tipped like this. And then this part, the back part is the booster, which the moment it gets to cruise mode. So till this part is shaved off.
Something like here.
There.
What is particular about BrahMos in comparison to its Russian origin, the Indian scientists have developed a very long booster which is actually stretching through the body of the missile, which is stretching the range of the missile.
So
in comparison to its original. So it is a very powerful missile. We have seen it in action last year.
Right.
But it is a very big, hefty weapon. Therefore, India is already working on BrahMos NG, which is new generation, which is going to be smaller, lighter, and compatible with smaller aircraft than Su-30.
Right. Now, one of the older aircrafts which he talked about that had the Spice and also the Hammer is the Mirage 2000. Now, again, a tried and tested aircraft among the Indian Air Force. What makes this aircraft so special? And what is it going to be replaced with in the future generations?
Mirage was always special because of its avionics, because of these computers which are making other type of, or actually easy to adapt additional weapon unit. When during the Kargil War, Indian Air Force wanted to have guided bombs, it was relatively simple, under apostrophes, to put on a Lantern targeting pod and guided bombs acquired from Israel on it. In this case, this one is shown in its latest variant, which is Mirage 2000 IH. This is a very advanced system nowadays, including Mika air-to-air missiles and Israeli-made Spice.
Yes.
Additionally, Spice is coming in several calibers. In 250 kilogram, this is this variant. In 500 kilogram, and in 1,000 kilogram variant. Depending on the target, you can put this kit of the weapon. This is the guidance head of the Spice. These are the fins, the steering fins. You can put it, attach it to whatever warhead you want to use.
Right.
And therefore it's Spice 500, 1,000 and 2,000.
1,000 and 2,000.
Yes.
There's one thing which we skip, but because we want to bring the focus back onto the Iran-Israel-US conflict right now is the F-16I. The Israeli Air Force is also pressing this into service. And it's been customized for the Israeli Air Force.
This is a customized variant just for the Israeli Air Force. Sure, from it, the Lockheed Martin has developed different other sub-variants for different other air forces, but this is the heavily customized variant for Israeli Air Force with extra large fuel tanks in order to reach Iran.
Right.
And then it has, for example, is compatible with such weaponry like Delilah.
Okay, this is Delilah.
Yes, this is Delilah. This is a turbojet-powered mini-cruise missile with a range of some 200 kilometers. Here it is under the aircraft.
Okay.
Delilah needs, for its deployment, this big guidance pod. It means the weapon system officer in the rear seat is constantly in contact, so to say, with the weapon. Additionally, it carries lantern or lightning pod. This is this dark pod under the intake.
And
so
it's
a very advanced aircraft.
And
yes,
it's a two-seater.
Yes.
It's a two-seater. Okay.
Pilot is in front, weapon system officer in the rear. And what is also typically for Israel, you can see this little red, white, green.
Yes.
This is so-called kill marking. In this case, for Hezbollah UAV shot down several years ago.
Right.
What is also a little bit different between Israeli and Indian Air Force are these Gaudi unit insignia.
Right.
You can instantly recognize every single Israeli unit by the markings it's applying on its fins.
Right. So that's the marking for the Israeli air.
This is for the 201 squadron, also called nicknamed the Wolf
Right.
Squadron.
Now, this, what you said is again interesting. This is a kill
marking, yes.
So kill marking means that this aircraft and
Has
the
shot down
pilot
something.
has shot down something. So
Yes.
it could be a Hezbollah target or something else, but it has shot down, so this has got kills.
Yes.
So that's how the potency of the pilot and the aircraft, or the legend, builds amongst the Air Force.
Exactly, yes. There are also such kill markings for strikes on Iranian reactors, on Iraqi reactors, on Syrian reactor, and so on. They are applying them depending on what
Right. Now, out of the
mission.
Israeli weapon systems and the guided missiles, which do you think was India now trying to acquire? You said Spice and Hammer are already there.
Yes.
Are we looking at trying to get the Delilah also?
I'm not sure about Delilah, but certainly ROX or Air Laura. I think this is on the other artwork of the F-16I, if you have copied it.
Okay. Do we have the other F-16D? Was it on the F-16D?
F-16I.
F-16I. F-16I, we've just got this one. Okay.
Never mind. This is the F-15, but
Yeah,
it is
F-15.
essentially it's such a weapon.
Okay.
Air Laura is just even heftier and looks a little bit different in front.
Okay.
Air Laura or ROX.
Okay.
They all have two names, one for export, one for Israeli service.
Right.
It's essentially, India is purchasing exactly this kind of weapons as well.
Right.
And what's more, on this aircraft, behind the missile, you can see this jammer pod, electronic warfare pod.
Yes.
This is something, for example, Tejas is already carrying.
Tejas is already carrying this jammer.
It's already in service in India.
Right.
So this is also a point, you know.
What does this jammer actually do? Quickly, we're running out of time.
It is emitting electronic emissions which are jamming any kind of approaching radar-guided missiles. It's hiding the aircraft behind some sort of a electronic cloud, making it invisible for enemy missiles.
Any of the missiles and the radar to follow. So it's like a frequency shield that's being built around the aircraft, and Tejas has that. So this was all about the aircrafts that the Israelis are now pressing into service, and also how it is marrying into the Indian Air Force. But this is just the beginning. What about the drones? What about the UAVs? Who's got the better tech and who's got the kamikaze? All of that here on Inside the Bunker with Tom Cooper very soon. Stay with us.
Complete devastation, a direct hit by a missile.
Picture is that the US is not able to defend.
Of a drone of massive, the number of ballistic missiles.
Where is it that Iran is actually placing its resources right now?
Tabriz, Sanandaj, Khorramshahr, and this is now what they are doing since yesterday. They are conducting more or less an organized.
US bases have been targeted. Drone has been shot down now.
Iran can then threaten or attack enemy nationals.
A massive missile and drone attack over here.
Iran now has been completely, in some ways, dominated.
With ballistic missile attack. It means the Kuwaiti air defense was under big strain.
IDF spokesperson Ben Cohen, who joins us from the front lines, really. Thank you, Ben, for speaking with us. What's the situation right now in Israel? What are we expecting by the way of timelines? Is this war going according to plan?
So I just returned from the bomb shelter from a siren that was just in the area. We started this operation, Operation Roaring Lion, on Saturday morning, when the IDF and the US Armed Forces started a joint operation intended to do one thing, and that's eliminate an existential threat, a threat that's relevant to the state of Israel, to the United States, and to the world at large, and that's been proved over the last few days. The strike started on Saturday morning when we eliminated more than 40 senior Iranian commanders, including Supreme Leader Khamenei, and they continued over recent days as we struck aerial defense targets, ballistic missile targets, and other Iranian terrorist regime targets in Tehran and in Iran at large. Over the last 36 hours, the Hezbollah terrorist organization, the Iranian terrorist regime's main proxy, made a strategic mistake and decided to fire dozens of rockets and UAVs at Israel. And at this time, Incongruent to IDF strikes and US armed forces strikes in Iran, the IDF is striking Hezbollah terrorist organization commanders and targets in order to eliminate that threat on Israeli civilians.
So, of course, we're hearing that the new Iranian defense minister has been eliminated in a fresh wave of strikes from Israel. But what we're seeing also is resistance coming from Iran. They seem to have hunkered down. They're sending these drones. Many people are saying that this is a strategy where they are trying to exhaust your munitions, the Iron Dome, patience of the Gulf allies. Is this what Iran's game plan is, or are they actually not being able to react using some of their hypersonic weapons and other bigger weapons because of compulsion? What's exactly happening? From your perspective, how do you read this?
So I can tell you that after 2.5 years of war, and after the 7th of October, the IDF has learned that we never underestimate our enemies. We understand the threat that the Iranian terrorist regime poses. And as far as it goes to their strategy, I can tell you one thing for certain, and that's that they have a strategy to target and hurt civilians specifically. This isn't just a message, it's concrete intelligence we have at hand. They're sending those ballistic missiles on their drones to civilian areas, not just in Israel, but in the entire Middle East.
Okay, well, what we're also hearing is that the longer this war continues, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about timelines, but the longer this war is continuing, costs are also escalating, as we know. Right now, I'm hearing that oil is up by about 8 to 10%, silver is up by 11%, the Strait of Hormuz is completely blocked. The new Iranian defense minister, of course, has been eliminated, and I just discussed that with you, and you're doing a fantastic job of trying to eliminate the top leadership. But is that really having an effect? Can bombs substitute for a ground invasion and affect regime change? So one is that question, and the longer we obviously stay in this war, there are